Okay, good evening, everyone. We're going to call the meeting to order and start off with our pledge of allegiance. If everyone can please stand. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, we have a couple of announcements. So the township has collection bins in the lobby for the following community support programs. We have the Montgomery County Winter Coat Drive that runs from September 15th to January 2nd, 2026, and we're accepting new coats only with the greatest need for men's and children's sizes. We're also accepting hats, scarves, gloves, blankets, and small space heaters, electric only. Montgomery County Thanksgiving Food Drive runs from October 6th to November 14th. So that's 4 days away for food donations, and October 6th to November 26th for gift cards with a minimum being of $25. And then we have our 30th annual Lieutenant Patty Simon's Law Enforcement Food Drive, which runs from now through mid-December. And then we have the following holiday events that'll be happening. We have Touch a Truck Toy Drive, which is November 22nd, 2025, from 10 a.m. to 12 p.m. at the Community Rec Center, featuring the Back to the Future DeLorean. So come see the vehicles from the police, fire, EMS, Public Works, and please bring a toy to donate if you can. We have our craft fair Saturday, December 6th, 2025 from 10 a.m. to 2 at the Rec Center, and all vendor slots are currently full. But just come out and shop and with our local and creative crafts people. So please just come out and support them. And then this is dear and near to my heart, Breakfast with Santa, Saturday, December 13th. Registration opens on November 12th at 1, and the two sessions fill up quickly. I think last year within like 5 minutes, they were filled. But please check the Community Rec Center website for more information on that. And before we move on to public comment, I just wanted to give Supervisor Staub an opportunity to speak.
Hello, yes. This week we are celebrating our veterans. Tomorrow's Veterans Day. We wanted to extend our deepest gratitude to all who've served in the armed forces, and that your courage and commitment remind us of the true meaning of service. And we want to thank you for all that you've given to our country. That's all.
Okay, item number 4 is public comment. So any persons wishing to make public comment during this meeting on any items not listed on the agenda may do so at this time. So you can come up to the microphone, state your name and address for the record. Okay.
Nope, there's someone coming.
Someone coming? Oh, here we go.
Jay Wachewski, 100 Country Club Drive. 2 meetings ago, there was a discussion about, or a mention about EV charging stations here at the rec center. I was just wondering where that idea stood right now.
You have anything to say?
We're investigating grant opportunities through PICO as well as Delaware Valley Regional Planning Commission.
Okay. My question is, what need does that satisfy for the township, putting those stations in?
We have visitors who come to the rec center who are there for a prolonged period of time, and we thought it would give them an opportunity to be able to charge their vehicles. It doesn't cost the township anything because they would pay directly to the provider for their electric, just like you pay for your fuel. And if the grant application would be successful, we wouldn't have to pay to put them in. The grant would take care of that. Delaware Valley Regional Planning Commission, they're looking to put more EV charging stations in. at locations that are not far from arterial roads like 463, like 309. So we just considered the rec center as an opportunity.
So we would be servicing non-township residents with those charging
Any
stations?
visitors to the rec center, anybody who lives in the township who wanted to park there
Well,
and charge.
I was thinking anybody in the township charges at home when they're driving a couple miles. So why would we take on that burden of putting those in?
Well, that'll be
mean-
a board decision after they
I
see
mean, the
what.
township, the only place I can think of that has charging stations would be the hotel because their visitors come from far away. But I don't see them at the grocery store. Does the mall have them?
No.
I don't know. It just doesn't seem like a need we need to satisfy and even spend a nickel on it. That's my 2 cents. So,
Okay. Well, thank you.
okay,
For your comment.
thank you.
Okay, item number 5. This is the announcement of our executive session. Township Solicitor.
Yes. The board met in executive session at 6 p.m. This evening to discuss personnel and real estate matters. The executive session was in compliance with the Pennsylvania Sunshine Law.
Item number 6, this is our consent agenda. I'm going to make a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented for the following: minutes of the October 27th, 2025 Board of Supervisors meeting, minutes of October 24, 2025 budget work session, and payment of the bills for November 10th, 2025.
Second.
Any public comment? All those in favor? Item number 7, we have the introduction swearing in of our new police officer, Chief Peoples.
Thank you. Go ahead, Crystal. On May 14th, 2025, a recruit hiring process was initiated to fill the vacancy within the department's patrol division. 71 applicants competed for the position of recruit police officer in this hiring process. The police department hiring process included an application review, physical agility tests, 2 police oral review boards, and a background investigation consisting of polygraph examination, neighborhood interviews, physical exam, psychological exam, drug testing, and employer interviews. Ryan Varela was selected as one of the top candidates and is before the board this evening for consideration for appointment to the position of recruit police officer. Ryan Varela was born and raised in Philadelphia until the age 9, when he and his family moved to the Willow Grove area. He attended Upper Moreland High School and played soccer, ice hockey, lacrosse, and tennis. Ryan is currently a sergeant in the Pennsylvania Army Reserve and is assigned to the 333rd Engineer Company out of Reading, Pennsylvania. In May of this year, Ryan Varela attended Temple University Police Academy in Ambler, Pennsylvania, and graduated in October of 2025. Ryan Varela has completed all of his required certification and testing to be a certified police officer in Pennsylvania. Funding to fill this position was included in the 2025 approved budget. It is recommended that Ryan Varela be sworn in as a recruit police officer with an effective hire date of November 11th, 2025.
Motion before we actually swear you in, to appoint Ryan Varela as recruit police officer in the Montgomery Township Police Department effective November 11th, 2025.
Second.
Any public comment? All those in favor? Aye. Okay, you're gonna repeat after me. I, Ryan Varela,
I, Brian Varela,
do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
or affirm that I will support,
to affirm I will support,
obey and defend
obey and defend
the Constitution of the United States
the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of this Commonwealth,
and the Constitution of this Commonwealth.
and that I will enforce the laws of the Commonwealth
And I will enforce the laws of the Commonwealth
and the ordinance of Montgomery Township,
and the ordinance of Montgomery Township.
and that I will discharge the duties of police officer
And I will discharge the duties of a police officer
with fidelity.
with fidelity.
I do further swear
I do further swear
or affirm
or affirm
that I will uphold,
I will uphold,
obey,
obey,
and enforce the laws without
and enforce the laws without
consideration to a person's race,
consideration to a person's race,
color,
color,
sex,
sex,
religious creed,
religious creed,
sexual orientation,
sexual orientation,
age,
age,
national origin,
national origin,
ancestry,
and ancestry,
handicap,
handicap,
or disability.
or disability.
Congratulations. Thank you. Thank you.
Congratulations. Oh, right. Real quick. I'll get you now. Your family welcome to the party this time. Talk soon. Just ironic, his reserve unit where he's at. I was in the reserves. Yeah, it's the same building.
Okay, we're looking at item number 8 is our volunteer committee applicant for EAC, Paul Mao. Forgive me if I didn't say that correctly. Carolyn McCreary.
Thank you. Good evening. We've received an application from Township resident Paul Mao, who is interested in serving on the Environmental Advisory Committee. His resume is attached, and he's been invited to attend the meeting tonight and introduce himself. Staff is recommending that the Board of Supervisors consider his appointment to the EAC. And as an aside, Mr. Mao was gracious enough to serve on the Ready for 100 committee when we did our study of our operations and how we can improve to be more sustainable in the future.
Okay, Mr. Mao. Here you are. Hi.
Right to the microphone. Yep.
All right. Thanks. Hi. So as they said, my name is Paul Mao. I've been a township resident since 2017. I live in the township with my wife and 2 daughters. And I guess I am very passionate about the environment and creating safe spaces for us all to live and enjoy. I have been in business or working professionally, primarily in technology, but also in sustainability. I was a sustainability program manager at Comcast for a couple of years, where I implemented a number of energy reduction initiatives, as well as serving on the RE100 committee, and have also created various software products to reduce energy and increase energy efficiency and better monitor energy use. But otherwise, yeah, be very honored to offer my services in support of this committee. Any questions?
I just wanted to say thank you. I had a pleasure of working with him on the Ready for 100 and bump into him regularly out and about, Atom Fest and whatnot. And I said, hey, we need you. So he followed up right away with a resume, and here he is. So we're lucky to have him.
Thank you.
Yes. Thanks for volunteering your time.
Absolutely.
Yeah, thanks so much, Paul. So I'm going to make a motion to appoint Paul Mao to the Environmental Advisory Committee to serve an existing 3-year term to expire January 1st, 2028.
Second.
Any public comment? All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
You're
Paul.
in.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, item number 9 is a request for waiver fees from the MTMSA. Mary Ann McConnell.
The township received a written request from Shannon Drosnock, Executive Director of the Montgomery Township Municipal Sewer Authority, requesting the township consider waiving the fees for the associated permits for their ultraviolet disinfection project at the Eureka Wastewater Treatment Plant located at 1485 Lower State Road. The project includes the construction of a new 1,596 square foot UV building, including electric and an associated driveway. The board has waived permit fees in the past for sewer authority projects. These fees are based on the square footage of the new building and the estimated cost of the electric work, and calculate to be about $6,150.44 for the building permit, including building, electric, and zoning fees.
Any questions or comments from the board? Okay. I'm going to make a motion to waive the fees associated with the permits for the Montgomery Township Municipal Sewer Authority ultraviolet disinfection project at the Eureka Wastewater Treatment Plant.
Second.
Any public comment? All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Item number 10 is a review of zoning hearing board application, New Britain Township. Mary Ann McConnell.
Included in your packet is a notice of a meeting received by the township regarding an application before the New Britain Township Zoning Hearing Board for their November 20th, 2025 meeting. The applicant seeks relief in order to construct 3 warehouses on the property located at Walnut Street and 56 Walnut Street at County Line Road across the street from Whistle Stop Park. The board may send the solicitor's office to obtain standing and oppose the application. This action would require a motion, second, and vote of the board, or they may just allow it to proceed in New Britain.
Any questions, comments? I'm okay to just stay neutral on this. Everybody's feeling okay with that? Okay. We're going to just remain neutral on the application and let the New Britain Township Zoning Hearing Board render a decision.
Thanks for asking.
Yeah. Item number 11 is the 2026 proposed MTMSA budget. Shannon Drasnock. I love that top.
Happy Birds Night. Go Birds. It's a lot of pressure. He's got me. Oh, maybe he doesn't. Wait. Don't tell Rich if I have something wrong on the tech side. No. He's gonna yell at me. See, he said to me, if you disconnect and it doesn't come up, I'm hiding. It is. Here he comes. He's gonna yell at me. He's gonna yell at me. He's like, I told you not to disconnect it. I'm connected. I know. I did that. I didn't do that. There we go. Thank you for your patience. Good evening. Thank you for having me tonight. Before I go any further, I did want to introduce, we have some MTMSA board members with us here tonight. We have Chris Kelm, our chairman, Dave Barrett, our secretary, and Dan Baker, our treasurer. So I want to start this evening by telling you that the MTMSA board has approved implementing a sewer rate increase for 2026. This would be the first increase since 2012, so in the last 14 years. With that in mind, I want to provide you a bit of history, and you can see how we got here, where we're investing the money, and what our future looks like. So we're going to do a 10-year summary. I will not go into grave detail and keep you here too long. As we go through this slide, it's important to provide some context to you. The oldest portion of the Eureka wastewater treatment plant has just passed 30 years. In 2022, it passed 30 years. So 30 years old, think about the lifespan of your typical exterior structures, your building, the outside of a tank, roofs, stuff like that. They typically have a 30-year lifespan. The second portion of our treatment plant is what we call the expansion, and that's the treatment tanks and our main building. That was done in 2003, and so that has just passed the 20-year mark. Treatment tanks, think about a 20-year lifespan is the lifespan of all the mechanical equipment that handles wastewater treatment. So your pumps, your grinders, your mixers, all the stuff that's sitting in sewage every day with moving parts and electrical equipment has about a 15 to 20-year lifespan. And then our collection system, the oldest portion of our collection system, has just hit its 60th anniversary, which, as you know, is when the authority was created, which is why we had our 60th anniversary a couple years ago. Think about your collection system as a lifespan of about 50 years. So just to put some context into the numbers, you can see that kind of every portion of MTMSA's infrastructure is hitting its lifespan period all at the same time. So let's look at the last 10 years. Capital expenditures annually were less than $1 million per year from 2016 to 2020. Capital expenditures annually started to increase to over $1 million in 2020, and we're just under $5 million in 2024, and will continue to rise for approximately the next 4 years. So again, just think about a curve. We're going along relatively flat. Now we're going to go pretty rocket ship up because everything's aging at the same time. And then that's going to last for a couple of years. And then we're going to start to go down because things have been replaced. And we hope that in the future, we're spanning those replacements out as staggered as we can while still maintaining the integrity of the process so that when we hit the next lifespan, we can flatten that curve a little. Capital contributions come from two main places: tapping fees, which is a one-time connection into the system, and net operating surplus. So our revenue minus our expenditures, whatever's left goes into our capital reserve fund. As you know, the township is 98% developed. So our one-time connection fees into the system are dwindling. We don't expect to have much. Sometimes we have redevelopment in the township, but depending on what that is, it might not generate tapping fees. And then net operating surplus, as I mentioned, we haven't had a rate increase in 14 years. Our rates are 94% of our revenue, which means our revenue has remained flat for 14 years. While as everybody's expenses do, our expenses have risen. So our net operating surplus gets smaller and smaller. Our contributions into capital get smaller and smaller. Total capital projects in 2016 were 15. We had 15 projects budgeted for the year of 2016. You can see in the small print there how that makeup of those capital projects were. This year, we have 40 projects, so almost triple the number of projects. We have not increased our staff, and we've cut our consulting costs by 80% over the last 10 years. So we're doing almost 3 times the amount of work on less money. And you can see here in this chart, it just kind of puts into a graphical format what we've just spoke of. The solid lines represent the actual numbers. The gradient lines represent the budgeted numbers. So again, you have the kind of orange line, the yellowy orange line shooting up. That's your capital expenditures. Your net operating surplus used to be over $2 million. Now we're looking at under $1 million as we go down, what we just talked about. And then your tapping fees, again, running along relatively flat. You'll have a spike here and there. We recently had the Luxor apartment building project. That was an increase of one-time fees into our tapping fee. But for the most part, they're relatively flat. So financial highlights of the last decade. As we just spoke about, our sewer revenue has been flat for 9 years. We did have a slight uptick in 2024 on the commercial side, and that was just from a usage standpoint. Personnel costs have increased over 50% in the last 10 years, and some of that is related to filling empty positions. So we have not increased the number of staff members at Eureka, but we did have some empty positions that we filled. As I mentioned, our consulting costs are down over 80% over the last 10 years. As I think you've all experienced, our operating costs surged after COVID. From 2016 to 2020, our operating costs increased less than 1%. From 2020 to today, they're about 24% increase. So I think everybody's experiencing that in your personal life, in your organizations. We're in an inflationary period. Our electric costs are down 13% over 10 years. That's important to note at Eureka, because unlike the township where most of your electric costs are your lights, at Eureka to operate the plant is a very power heavy industry. So we're running an operating plant 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. It's about $250,000 a year in electric costs. So we watch that very aggressively. When I started in 2016, the price to compare was about 4.5 cents on the open market per kilowatt. It's now 11 cents on the open market per kilowatt. So it's gone up almost 3 times, and our electric costs have decreased by 13%. Treatment fees to other plants, that's the fee that we pay to other authorities who receive and treat our waste. So anything that can get to us by pump or gravity gets to Eureka. But we have a good portion, about 50% of our flow that goes to other authorities, the majority of which goes to Hatfield, some Upper Gwinnett, some Lower Gwinnett, some Chalfont. And that's because it would be way too cost heavy in order to get that flow up over the hill to Eureka. We have no control over those costs. Those costs have gone up 50%. On the operating side of things, so where are we currently? The 2025 budget that we're living in shows the authority board's priorities. It shows investment in personnel through education, training, and safety. It shows investment in collection and treatment through preventative maintenance and with equipment replacement. Our budget's on track for the year and is expected to end with operating revenues at 100% of budget and operating expenses at approximately 97% of budget. Budgeting is really important in our industry. Our sewer rates are based on our annual budget. It's important to us that our sewer rates reflect the accuracy of what's happening. So if our budget is too low and we're spending more, we're not charging enough on our sewer rates. If our budget's too high, we're overcharging on our sewer rates. And we want to hit that sweet spot, which is exactly what we need. Over the 10-year period, we average 103% on revenues, and we average 96% on budgeted expenditures. So we like to stay in that window of plus and minus 5% on either side. It allows us to have a stable rate environment. On the revenue side, as I mentioned, our sewer rentals, our sewer rates to customers is 94%. So there's not much to tell you on the revenue side. On the expense side, our pie hasn't changed drastically over the years. As I mentioned, our personnel expenses went up a little bit because of filling open positions. So that piece of the pie got a little bigger. Our operating expenses are starting to actually get a hair smaller as we're replacing equipment. It's not as expensive to maintain on an annual basis when it's new. So that drives our operating costs down a hair on that side, our electric rates like we talked about. And then our treatment fees to other plants, that piece of the pie is getting a little bigger. As I mentioned, we have no control. That's what we're charged by other authorities. This gives you a snapshot of our operating budget. As you can see, we're expecting about a $1.5 million increase in our revenues related to the sewer rate increase. On the expense side of things, we have regular personnel wage increases, treatment fees to other plants that we spoke about. We do have an increase in administrative and other. I want to point that out. The MTMSA authority has been debt-free since 2017. This year, we secured debt with Penvest. I believe you're familiar with Penvest. It's low-cost loans for government entities. We're doing an aeration project. You were kind enough to waive that permit fee for us 2 months ago, and then the UV once night. So thank you for that. So next year, we'll have our first debt payment to that. And that's why you see that expenses, administrative, and other go up. Some highlights of our capital budget. I had spoken to you over the last couple of years about Basin B rehab. So that is when we reline the pipes that are 60 years old now. We've finished. Basin B. I'm so thankful. I feel like I've talked about Basin B for too many years. So we've finished Basin B and we're moving on to Basin A. And that's the older portion of the township, which is north of North Wales Road. Think Bonnie Lane, the Rosewoods, Lantern Drive, Brattle Path, that whole area. So we'll continue to work on that. That's probably a 10-year project. Tank B exterior repair, we talked about that. 30 years is the exterior life of things. We did submit for a grant for that, so we won't know until later next year in 2026 if we got that grant. We have to do the project either way, so we fund it for it in our budget, but hopefully we'll receive the grant. Repurpose utility water, it has to do with the treatment process. Every 5 to 7 years, we take down one of our treatment tanks, and we'll need to paint the inside of that tank and then do any repair and maintenance. We budgeted $250,000 for that. We don't expect that we will spend that much, but we like to have that in there. We haven't seen what's underneath the sewage for the last 7 years, so we give a little cushion in case something happens. Knapp Road Pump Station Force Main, this is a big project that we'll talk about extensively next year. For the 2026 budget, it's just design and engineering work and some investigative work. After that, we'll actually budget for the repair. We're going to replace about a mile of force main that's underground. That cannot be relined. That has to be dug up and replaced. And we can't dig it up, take it out, and replace in kind because we need it in service during that time. So we're going to dig a parallel trench. It's an expensive project. We'll know better next year what costs we're looking at for that. UV disinfection system, as I mentioned, thank you for approving our permit waiver for that. That's a huge project for us, and a third of that is funded through ARPA grant money. And that is a 2-year project where we're going to get rid of our chemical chlorine gas disinfection, which is an incredibly caustic, nasty, very effective chemical. We'll be replacing that with ultraviolet, which is much more environmentally friendly. It's much softer for staff in the environment, and it's every bit as effective. So we're looking forward to getting that done. That should be in service by October of next year, knock on wood. Hatfield Capital Projects, as I mentioned, we're a third owner of the Hatfield plant. Last year, I came to you and said that Hatfield was going to be doing a huge electrical upgrade. That is still happening. Hatfield's been great about working with us, so we're working pretty extensively on that. We've been able to give some suggestions that would lower some costs. They've been very open to our suggestions, and we're continuing to work on that. They're also continuing to look for grant funding for that, but we expect our portion of that will be just south of $5 million over the next couple of years. And then some smaller items I lumped together in there: roofs, pumps, variable frequency drives. So in summary, for the 2026 budget, we did a sewer rate increase. So before we went and decided to increase rates, we did a study. We had a third party come in and do a study. Our sewer rate, I know that you spend a lot of time looking at your sewer bill and analyzing it in great detail. But just in case you didn't, our sewer rates are made up of 2 components. There's a fixed rate component, and that's for the infrastructure. And then there's a usage component, and that's for basically your operating cost, your annual treatment cost. Our fixed rate is a good number. We've had the study done. We're confident with that number. We're not changing it. It's $87.59 per resident per quarter. It's a little different on the commercial side, but that's the gist of it. On the usage side, that's the number that we're going to increase. So the less you use, the less increase you will bear in that cost. And that's done per 1,000 gallons. Our average user is 13,000 gallons per quarter. That rate's going from $2.84 to $5.34. There's a tapping fee rate increase. Again, that's that one-time connection. So none of our residents would feel that increase. They've already paid it through the purchase of your house. And that goes from $4,822 for the bulk. We have a couple special purpose ones, but for the bulk of our customers, $4,822 to $6,434. That calculation comes straight from the Municipal Authorities Act. It's not subjective. It's a hardened calculation set by law of how you do it, and that's what that number comes out to. Capital projects budgeted for 2026, $7.3 million. So we talked about we're hitting the apex of that curve. This year and next year are going to be the peak. That includes the UV disinfection system, the Hatfield electrical project. And then our operating budget, the largest 2 pieces percentage-wise on the increase is treatment fees to other authorities. of which we have no control, and then the debt service payment, which is not a huge increase in our budget. Percentage wise, it was 0. So it's a huge increase that way. Are there any questions that I can answer for you about this?
You mentioned average user. Can you define that? Like, that's a household of how many, or is that?
I can't tell you how many people are in it.
Okay.
But we take literally every residential bill and we average it out.
Okay.
So typically speaking, I would say 3 people in a household.
Okay.
The more typically, and again, some users are different, the more children in your household, the more it goes up, right? Teenagers love to run the shower. You're doing more wash. You're doing more dishwashers. My family was an abuser of the system, so I definitely feel the pain when the bill comes. My family was 30-some thousand gallons. I shouldn't say that out loud. It's a little embarrassing. My family was over 30-some thousand gallons. I have one off to college now. It went down to 22,000 gallons.
Wow.
So I think I found my culprit. So that's kind of where it goes at. So just by way of example, I'm now down to 3 people, still 1 teenager, and I'm at 22,000 gallons. Most people who are seniored in life, living in a smaller home, some of those homes don't even have dishwashers. They might be 7,000-8,000 gallons in a quarter. They're fairly low.
And then might not be a fair question, but any idea on an average increase dollars and cents?
Well, again, it's hard to say. Yeah. You're saying from a percentage standpoint, it can range from 3% to 35%. Again, my family, before my daughter went off to college, we're probably going to have about a 32% rate increase. A senior couple living in a small home, they're going to see maybe a 4% rate increase. So it really does vary based on usage. The good side to that is you can control that to an extent. Depends on how much you want to fight with your children, but you can control that increase.
Shannon, you mentioned Knapp Road and the force main.
Yeah.
Where is it located?
So the Knapp pump station is directly across from Knapp Elementary, right where we have that S curve.
Okay.
And that force main runs about a mile. So it follows that S curve along and then goes into, I think that's Lansdale Avenue right there.
Then your engineers need to talk to our engineers because we have to replace the 2 culverts on Knapp Road, and we're responsible for it along with Lansdale Borough. So we're expecting next year to be design, planning, and then we've got to work with the school district in terms of being able to have access over there. There's one resident who's in between both culverts, so we have to make sure there's access constantly for them. So we will have to have a sit down.
Yeah, that's good timing though. I'm glad that's working out well that way. Yeah, for sure. Thank you. Any other questions? You know, reach me. If you have anything that comes up, please feel free to reach out. And thank you again so much.
Thanks, Shannon. Thank you. Okay, item number 12, proposed fire department staffing expansion budget. Chief Wigman or Carolyn, I don't know who's speaking.
I'll start if you don't mind. So at your October 28th, 2024 meeting, Chief Wigman presented a detailed report concerning fire staffing and concerns about the decline in volunteer firefighters. At the April 28th meeting earlier this year, he then spoke about this in greater detail, and costs were shared with the board at your June 23rd public meeting. The rationale for the conversion was shared with the Public Safety Committee meeting in May, and the financial data was reviewed with the Finance Committee on July 24th. Since then, finance staff prepared an estimate of the cost for this expansion using Chief Wigman's staffing recommendations of 6 firefighters on a squad in the terms of current collective bargaining agreement. The benefit costs were calculated based on current premiums, projected premium increases for health insurance, and an equal mix of participant classifications, meaning employee, spouse, or family coverage. Since that time, we've gone back to Chief Wigman's original proposal in October, which had been for 5 on a shift, and those numbers are presented tonight as one of the alternatives. During the discussion at the June 23rd meeting, the board requested us to evaluate overtime costs if the township were to take a phased approach over 3 years and increase real estate taxes each year over 3 years instead of 1. At your July 28th meeting, board consensus was to host in-person meetings to give residents a chance to learn about the plan, the reason for it, and the impact it would have on their township real estate taxes. Emails were sent to all the homeowners association points of contact for the residential neighborhoods in the township. We also publicized the plan in our e-news and social media platforms. Chief Wegman and I met with residents in Montgomery Walk and Neshaminy Falls. Both are 55+ communities. No other HOA had reached out to request a meeting. We also did a podcast on this, as well as have now a dedicated webpage, which on our home screen, there's a button you can go to and it gives all the information. On Thursday, August 28th, Chief Wegman and I hosted an in-person town hall meeting here at the Township Building. It was live streamed and recorded. A postcard mailer announcing the discussion as tonight's meeting and providing a QR code to the dedicated webpage was mailed to 11,304 addresses, including residents and businesses. The fire department's proposed 2026 budget includes 4 staffing scenarios that Chief Wegman, Mr. Berge, and I are prepared to discuss this evening.
Okay, so I think it makes sense, before we do this, so we open up for public comment. And so this is the opportunity for anyone to come forward. And again, we ask that you come forward to the mic, state your name and address for the record. And we do ask that we keep it to 5 minutes per person, if possible. This is public comment, so it's not really so much a back and forth versus we want to hear from the community. We want to hear, what possibly questions, comments, concerns. If there's something we have to get back to you on, we can. But this is an opportunity for you to share, what you'd like to share with us. Okay.
Good evening, Karis Lasky, 6 Muley Avenue. We live in the part of the township that is on the other side of the 5 Points intersection. And our concern is, regardless of whether our fire company is staffed by paid firefighters or volunteers or a combination of both, is the response time to get to a fire on the other side of the 5 Points intersection. Thank you.
Hi, Denise Eshelman. I live at 106 Caldwell Court. I appreciate all the notifications you said you got. Unfortunately, this is what I got. Nothing from my HOA. So I wanted to come tonight and just share a couple thoughts. One was, I appreciate that we need a reliable fire company, obviously, whether it be with hired or with volunteers or a combination. I was wondering if there was ever a consultant firm obtained as an independent to check on the safety, the staffing needs. And I know that all costs money, but sometimes penny wise and pound foolish if we don't invest in an independent analysis of the needs. I looked at the millage tonight and I'm kind of ignorant, so I really had to do a little research. But the increase of 1.4 mils was quoted on this card, which takes me from 2.94 to additional 1.4. It's actually an increase of 47.6% of our township taxes for this expenditure, which is significant for a lot of people. Besides this card and the flashing signs on Horsham Road, that was the only information I really had. And my bad, I should have looked more into it, seeing those flashing signs. But looking up over Pennsylvania, seeing that there's over 2,559 municipalities, only which 33 have fully paid fire personnel. That may not address what our need is, but we have to look into maybe a gradual phasing in for those who these taxes might be onerous to. The only other thing I want to say, and this is anecdotal, and maybe it's totally false. I'm a professional who comes in contact with a lot of people on a daily basis. And I started discussing what's going on with the fire department in this township. And I happened to run across someone who was a volunteer fireman for this township, whose name I shall not repeat because, quite frankly, I don't even remember. But he shared with me something really concerning, and it made me come here tonight because pretty much I think it's a done deal, and I think it doesn't matter what I say because that's pretty much the way things seem to go. he was concerned that a lot of the volunteer firemen, not a lot, I should say he and some of the volunteer firemen felt as though they were not very welcome. They were being kind of encouraged to leave in order to replace them with fully paid individuals. For whatever reason, the top people really wanted to do this model. And he was kind of hurt by it. And he really felt like it was going to do a disservice to the community. Now, I don't know if this is fact or fiction. I have no idea. I'm not on the inside. But it concerned me a lot that he was like, no, there's a lot more people that want to do this and this, but we feel like we're just being pushed out and this is the model that's going to get done and that's just the way it is. So I'm just putting it out there not to be a meanie, but I gotta wonder if there's any truth behind that. It's kind of sad. And that we didn't have an independent thing. I'm very scientific. I analyze everything, and this wasn't analyzed. If you have a very serious disease and you have one person tell you something, you're going to get a second opinion before you do something really important. And that's kind of how I look at it. Thank you.
Can I just, I do want to make a comment to a done deal. So it's not a done deal yet. There is still conversation that's happening. We are still just trying to hear from folks and, take everything into consideration. So nothing is done deal. We're getting closer to decisions being made, but we're not there yet. And then with regard to, and I'm just, because these are things that have come up and been talked about. So you talked about a, third party coming in. So that was a conversation that did happen at one of our meetings, and it was voted that we were not going to bring in a consulting firm. So I don't know if you knew that. So I just wanted to answer that, if that was a question for you or not. Okay, I didn't know. Okay.
No, I wasn't here, but I read it online.
Okay.
I was very disappointed to hear that because I think then it would remove the onerous on one or 5 people from making that kind of huge decision for the entire community. I would rather pay for that, contribute to that consult and be sure that it's just not one person not wanting to juggle too many balls over 3 years of integrating both paid and volunteer. That's a lot of work, I'm sure. It's way easier to just wipe the slate and just start over. That's kind of how I feel. And I'm sure if I was at the top, I'd want to, make it easy. But I might be able to afford this kind of thing, but some people may not. It might be really hard. They might, like I am retirement age, but I'm still working, but I hear every day, I take care of retired people, how hard it is to make it ends meet. No, they don't want their house to burn down another 5 minutes, but honestly, sometimes they can't pay for heat. They can't pay for food. And honestly,
Thank you. Thank you.
And one other thing, Audrey, with the volunteers, there is no move to push out the volunteers. The chief has consistently said this will be paid and volunteer will continue.
And I don't know if I'm overstepping my bounds, so Chief, save me right now, possibly. But, it just recently, if everyone hasn't heard, one of the things that just got approved was the school district giving a rebate for specifically for volunteers. And I am here to tell you that Chief Wegman was instrumental on working on that and getting it across the finish line. So, volunteers are still very needed, still a part of our community, hopefully will continue to be a part of the community.
Madam Chair, members of the board, my name is Bernie Hines. I'm 110 Matthew Drive. Been a resident of the township for the last 35 years. My wife and I raised our daughters here. Our granddaughters are now coming to Montgomery Township as well. 32 years ago, our 2-year-old daughter had a meltdown on Christmas Eve, just at the time that Santa Claus came by on the fire truck. I said, yep, that's something I need to do. The next week, I was up at the Stump Road Firehouse, and I volunteered. I soon became battalion chief. I organized the Montgomery Township Fire Department, along with Chief Wegman and a number of the dedicated volunteers who are still here tonight. I'm a charter member and a life member of the Montgomery Township Fire Department. I've not been able to be active very long because I have my own business. I do a lot of traveling. I have had the chance, however, of reading Chief Wegman proposals. I've watched all of the township videos. I listened to the podcast. Thank you, Madam Manager, for putting that together and for the extensive amount of communication there's been to the residents of the township for this proposal. It's interesting to note that we are standing at the crossroads right now of the township, where there needs to be an adaptation of something that needs to happen. The demographics have changed. When I was the president of the Township Fire Department, the Township Board did not look like this. It was much different. And we adapted to that. In the fire profession, every fire is different. You may decide that an inch and 3/4 inch hose is going to do the thing, but you really need something different. You always need to adapt. We find ourselves now at a time of having to adapt in this township to changing dynamics, less volunteers, more fire exposures. The commercial residential dynamics have also changed. More people are driving through the township, so there are more vehicle rescues. We have 202 bypass coming through. There was a call on that earlier today. So all to say, I admire Chief Wegman. I've not spoken to the chief for a number of years. I remember his son, when he brought him first to the fire department, was this big. And I remember, Chief, you said your son has no interest in being a member of the fire department. I don't know what happened to you with regard to that, but that doesn't define real leadership at home. But I know Chief Wegman's leadership in the fire department has been exceptional. If I were a township manager and I could pick someone to lead a combination or paid or an all-volunteer fire department, Bill Wegman would be the only choice. He is a man of humility. He's a man of integrity. He's a man of leadership. The culture within the fire department is one that has to be emulated by many township fire departments throughout the Commonwealth. I know that even today, there are many township fire departments that contact ours to find out, what would you do in this situation? It is not the greatest of things to look at a tax increase, but much like you mentioned, how do you put a price on a home, on a life, on a family that's traveling through on the 309 bypass? You can't. But it is extremely comforting to know that this township has a fire department that is comprised of volunteers and paid personnel that answer the call each and every day. There are times at 2 o'clock in the morning when the automatic fire alarm goes off, and I can tell you from personal experience, one of the greatest, most humbling experiences is when someone's carbon monoxide detector has gone off in their basement, not a fire, not a rescue, but just a carbon monoxide detector. And you have all these volunteers and combination people showing up, and you've run the tests and all the measurements are normal. But you can look that mom or dad in the eye and say, folks, we've tested your house. You can go back to sleep now. And they extend you a hand of thanks. There's nothing that compares to the amount of training that our volunteers and the combination people in this department go through in order to make those decisions, tactical, strategical decisions, the amount of pre-planning that goes on to make sure that the equipment gets to the fire and the right equipment gets to the fire and the right hydrant gets hit and the right equipment, the right volunteers pull up to the house and one goes after the other to make sure that the house is properly ventilated, the fire gets attacked, the people are saved. Yes, I've been at those situations where you stood outside as I was a battalion chief, when you were the first one on scene and you're waiting and waiting and waiting for the trucks to come. And finally you start hearing the sirens. The opportunity to have a fully staffed, fully combination department, as Chief Wegman's proposal has outlined, is something that I would urge the board to give positive consideration to. It's something that I truly in my heart believe we need as we continue to evolve in this township to make sure that Montgomery Township maintains the quality of life for its residents and businesses throughout the year. I know that you, in your fiduciary capacity, and Chief Wegman with your leadership, will continue to keep your eyes open and keep a check on the pulse of other opportunities that might exist for grants and other ways of reducing taxes if this proposal is adopted by the board. There will be other ways in which, once the paid people are retained, that there may be a chance to reduce those taxes. I do know that going from an ISO class 4 to an ISO class 2 township, which the chief mentioned may very well happen once this proposal gets adopted, may save on the order of between 10 and 15% on our premiums for insurance for homeowners coverage. That's a good thing. That hits the pocketbook. Yes, we'd have to pay more in taxes to get that done. But in the age in which we live today and the way the demographics have changed, I would respectfully request that the board give positive consideration to Chief Wegman's request. And be pleased to work with Chief Wegman and the board based upon past history of things which probably are no longer relevant, but just from a standpoint of having the fire department and volunteerism in the heart. Be happy to work with you in any way, shape, or form you may require. And while I have the chance to have the microphone again, Chief, thank you for all that you've done for the department over the years. Thanks to all the volunteers who are here. I can tell you how proud I am of you and the history that you have continued to make and the legacy you leave for this township. It makes me proud to be a resident of this township, and you should be proud of what you do as well. The amount of retention and recruitment that is done by Rachel and the department is extraordinary. And as you mentioned, Madam Chair, the opportunities to work with the school board is also something very, very positive. Thank you very much for your time. And again, I respectfully request you adopt Chief Wegman's proposal when the opportunity presents itself.
Thanks for your comments. I just want to say real quickly, thank you for those comments and for just pointing out the great job that our chief does and that our volunteers do and that our paid staff do. No matter where this discussion goes, no matter what happens, we really do owe them all a debt of gratitude for keeping us safe. So I just would like to, you know.
Hi, my name is Sunny, 102 Birch Court. I obviously I'm not in the fire industry, so can't comment on the proposal or all that stuff. But I think sounds like you know what you're doing, and sounds like it's a good proposal. I'm not here to argue that. I don't know anyone that would argue not building a at par fire department, right? I find it hard to argue against that, truthfully. With that said, though, I think, and I love living in the township. I've lived here since I moved here to Pennsylvania 15 years ago. So I mean, I can't speak more highly than I already do of the township. However, there is some distrust. I'm on the board of 2 different HOAs in the township. I own multiple homes in the township, and as a board member of 2 HOAs, I did not ever get notification. I did reach out to the other board members as well as the property management firm that we hired. No one knew anything about this. No one was notified. So that's a little disheartening, built a little internal distrust. I'm assuming it's probably just broken communication because I think there's so many moving parts, and I'm hopeful that's what it is. But it sounds like maybe other HOAs also were in that kind of situation. Regardless, I think when we come down to, you know, yes, I think we should have a better safety for our families. How we get there, I think, is another question. It's easy for a computer software to say, here's how much money we need, and here's how much we raise taxes, right? But that's not what we have a smart, qualified, voted board for, right? A computer software can do that. I think it's our job as kind of business leaders, township leaders, organization leaders to get creative. And I can say on one of my HOAs, I continually reduce HOA fees in the last several years, which, as you all know in this room, nothing has gone down in the last several years. I think we get creative, we leverage, we group purchase. Every industry's got that in there. And so I would urge the board here to really maybe think about that, especially as we're putting up large buildings here. I think there's other creative ways to get that money than just raise dues. And after everything that happened with the high school and how that got voted down with the building of the high school and all that, I think this is, speaking with other neighbors in the community, this is really a bad taste in our mouth and again, not saying we shouldn't build the fire, but should we not develop our children and their school, which is totally antiquated, right? And so just to add more muddiness to this, right? Like, what about the school? What about the children? And then I think if, objectively, we can look at this all day, but I think also from the human touch, right? We're a community, right? First and foremost. Merck is doing a 10% layoff. J&J is doing a 10% layoff. You look across the board, you talk to any of your neighbors in any industry, right? I'm also in healthcare. Jefferson has done major layoffs, right? So yes, human lives and fires matter, but when you go to the hospital, you should see how unstaffed we are. And I'm not saying that's okay, but that's the reality of where we're at in every industry right now. And so I know it's not the popular thing to say more money and hiring more people is probably the wrong thing at this time. But from a human standpoint, we got to think about this. Our neighbors are about to start foreclosing on their homes soon. Okay. If Merck, as our backbone right here in our backyard, does a 10% layoff, if everyone's doing 8,000 employees laid off, each of us in this room, if not ourselves, maybe someone sitting next to us, is going to experience a home that can't pay their bills. And at that same time, to throw them another hike here, and then the HOA gives them a hike, and then their food costs more. We're a community. It's not the right time for that. Thank you. I noticed the Bills shoes. Sorry for the loss, but but thank you, and thank you for all you do.
Sir,
Thank you.
can you repeat your name and address, please?
Yes, Sunny, 102 Birch Court.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Good evening. My name is Bruce Sobis. I live at 104 Carnaby Circle in the Montgomery Lee development off of Keenest Road. And I've been a resident of Montgomery Township for about 30 years now. I'm a retiree for 5 years. And as a former actuary, nothing speaks to me louder than numbers. So I went back and looked at what our history of our millage rates have been back since 2020. And if this proposal goes through, as mentioned, the 1.4 additional millage increase, it would bring, as the lady mentioned here, our millage rate would increase 47.6%. Back in 2024, it went up 18.1%. 2022, it went up 67%. So every 2 years, there seems to be a pattern of rate shock in our millage rate. And if you spread that out annually since 2020, that's the same as increasing our millage rate 22% per year, which I'm hard pressed to think of anything that's really going up that much. Now, I'm sure no quarrel about any of the things we're using this money for. I mean, I'm all aboard with improving the fire department, and I'm sure all these other items that I mentioned, these increases here are for very, very good reason. Just want to make the board aware that this is painful for people on a fixed income. To have something go up 22% every year when all your income is coming from a fixed pension, Social Security. Just be mindful of that when you make these decisions. That's all I ask. Thank you.
How's it going? I'm Chris. I'm at 125 Stamen. And kind of to add on to your point, just one thing I wanted to point out is, our neighborhoods are starting to kind of slightly turn over a little bit. There is no more $1,500 mortgage. The interest rate at a minimum is at least 5.5%. So as you continue to increase the taxes, our mortgages are going to go up drastically. And kind of to the point of people start getting laid off and foreclosed, we're not going to be able to make those payments. So thank you.
Hello, Homer Lizardo, 119 Embassy Drive. I just have some questions about what was put out in the minutes versus the proposed budget. In the minutes, you're showing a millage rate option of 5 additions per shift, so 0 millage increase. But then you go to 7 hires at 1.0 millage, 11 hires 1.0 millage, and then 15 hires at 1.25 millage. But when you go to what you have as the proposed budget, the millage is 0.31, 1.15, and 1.4. And yet the numbers don't seem to correspond with the number of hires. You go from 0 to 7, and then to 11, and then to 5. So if I look at the 4 increases across those, something doesn't add up. So to me, there needs to be a working meeting to really go through and understand how these numbers are being developed. What do they really mean? And what is it going to mean for the long term? We saw already from the Water Authority that we're looking at an increase in our water bills as well, and pretty substantial. So, but they provided a very detailed structure of what the projects are and what everything is going to be coming into play. When I looked at the budget that is going to be talked about later on, so I'm sorry to jump ahead. There's like $37,000 in consulting services as an expenditure when you go to the 7 and the 11 and the 14 hires. I'm like, why do you need consulting services for something you've already adopted? So that there's a lot of questions, and I don't think we're going to get it all hashed out here. But just like you did for your budget meeting, I think you need to have a workshop where you really take people through this and really explain how this is really going to impact. And while you do have options of different numbers of firefighters that you will be putting on at different times, we haven't really seen how are you going to make that work. I mean, yeah, if you're just going to say, yeah, we're just splitting it up so it's not as big a burden, going down the line, year 2, is that when you're going to bring the next ones on and the next ones, or is there going to be a little bit more separation to ease the burden, given all the other things that are going to be coming along? The other question I have is how many homeowner associations are there in the township? Quite honestly, the only ones I know of are the Neshaminy Falls one, because they're probably one of the bigger ones, but I've never really heard of it. The neighborhood I live in, if there's a homeowners association, they've never contacted me for anything. So, and they haven't even told me anything about, I can't do this, I can't do that, because there are no deed restrictions per se. So that's what I think of as a homeowners association, where somebody is actively doing that. But I am curious as to, you say you've reached out to homeowners association, how many are there, and is there a way to put a listing for that out on the website or something? So maybe you can engage more people that way if you know there's a contact. Once you put a contact out there, there's somewhere to go to, versus I could spend hours trying to search down and not be able to find it. So thank you.
My name is Warren Sabia. I live at 111 Pinecrest Lane. At a previous meeting, the supervisors voted to accept the fire chief's recommendation. These are some rhetorical questions for you and the residents, just for everyone to think about. Does our fire chief know more than all fire chiefs' knowledge? Do the supervisors have an educational background and experience to evaluate the fire chief's proposal? Why did the supervisors put away money to hire a consultant? It appears that the previous supervisors recognized the need. What changed? The current fire department cannot be detached. They have a vested interest in the decision. The statement in the postcard that a fire can double every 30 seconds is a scare tactic. In 1 minute, under that circumstance, it would be 4 times larger. 3 minutes, 64 times larger. In 5 minutes, so they can't get there in 5 minutes, it'd be 1,000 times larger. That type of increase in the size of the fire usually goes someplace where you have flammable liquids. There are serious economic problems in the U.S., and I don't care how anybody cannot think that there are not. This September and October, just those 2 months, the national debt went up $1 trillion. Tariffs are taxes on the citizens. Food prices are skyrocketing. The federal government has been shut down for over a month. They just came back. Businesses are suffering. A few days ago, Wendy's announced 300 locations are closing. Farmers are going bankrupt. School taxes are increasing rapidly. Some people in this area are living in their cars or in parks. I've seen them. The president wants to deny SNAP benefits to the very poor and their children. In the economic crisis that we're in, we should be moving slowly. We should use a consultant who has the statistical expertise to make several recommendations. If anyone had to make a serious medical decision, the prudent decision would be to get a second or even a third opinion, not like we're doing tonight. I recommend that the supervisors go slowly and consider the financial struggles that the township residents are in. They should recognize their limitations on analyzing the firefighting problem. They should use a consultant. The final analysis on everything is where's the balance point? The fire department and the financial situations of the citizens. I ask you to use the money that you reserved in a previous time for using a consultant and get a better decision. Thank you.
Hello again. Jay Washesky, 100 Country Club Drive. I was here 4 weeks ago at the meeting where they decided not to hire consultants. That prompted me to dig into the proposal. And as the board knows, I copied you on an email I sent to Chief Wegman. And we found some issues with the annual report numbers that came out. The types of calls didn't add up to the total calls that were by month. So Chief's been great. He met with me for an hour and a half. I've probably spent 20 some hours myself digging through things, talking to him back and forth and so forth. So two questions I have, and I'd mentioned it to him the other day, was I would like to see an option in there for where we implement, we make a step, and then when certain conditions or criteria are met, then we look at adding more full-time firefighters. I didn't see that in there. Right now, the options are we do it all next year or we phase it in 3 years. I think maybe we could look at an option where we make a step and it's either one or two more steps if we need to go to a full-time, full crew. And then the other thing is from the data response time. And Chief's been great too. So if I say something inaccurate, please step in now. What's it, 9 minutes is the general response time. We have, our issue is that on, I think it's weekdays, weekends during the day, and a couple of shifts at night, we're not making that 9 minutes. We're at 10 minutes or plus. And that's where we need to figure out how to get underneath 9 minutes. And, do we have to hire a full-time crew the whole time or not? I don't know. But, would like, us to take the pace and make sure we look at all these different options that way. And there are a lot of factors in there, talking with Chief Bill, the camaraderie, the different types of shifts, which ones are optimal. And then with our our volunteers, we don't have that many, a dozen or so that are full-time, and some of them are younger than or close to my age, and they're in the 50s. So the good news is we do have a class of 10 coming in January for training. You're training them themselves instead of sending them off to somewhere else. And it's what, 220 hours of training they have to take?
Yeah, it's the first time ever in the department's history that we're
Okay.
going to host the National Pro Board Firefighter 1 class. I think as of today, Vinay said we had 11 of our own members that are going to be in the class. And we're working with our mutual aid partners to fill that class.
So I want to mention that besides, going back to, first of all, when I first met the chief, I thanked him for looking at this ahead of time versus we have a horrible accident somewhere and everybody's blaming each other that we didn't look at this ahead of time. So that's the good news. We're looking at this before it's too late. The other part is that also refutes the part about not wanting volunteers. I didn't pick that up from you at all. There's always innuendo. I'm glad you brought it up, but I wouldn't support the idea that the chief's not looking to work with volunteers also. So, but anyway, wrapping it back up, my two questions were, could we look at a third option where we're doing it incrementally and we move forward as conditions or criteria are met? And then the other one is, I'm not sure, we need to have a goal. What response time are we looking at across the board to hit so that we then can pull in the resources it takes to make that? And then the one other thing I mentioned too was, and it may not be true, could you go to a temp agency and get full-time trained firefighters, in emergency? Because you just can't go out and grab new firefighters the second you need them, but things like that. So that's one other thought I had. So those are all things to consider as we work on this. I'm going to add, I got involved with this because just my background, I said, why would you go from 5 full-time fire staff of 7 to 25? It didn't make sense. I could see the sense of urgency for doing something. So that's the other part of it is why do we need to go that fast yet? And so forth. So thank you.
Hi, it's John Scholl, 107 Cambridge Court. Just two things. The expenses, I think it's valid. What did you consider to cut? And we're always trying to balance the budget. So that was the first thing is please share with us, tell us what you decided that, hey, if you want to spend it, where are you saving to cover the cost? So maybe does that help? And the other thing is, I don't know what the legal thing is. How do you put this to a vote to the entire township, maybe in May or something like that? I like the fact that you slow it down, but I don't know how to go from here to picking it to a vote. I've attended a few meetings the last few times. I came in at 10 of 7. I was expecting a parking space. I couldn't find any, right? This is great, right? Everybody's here, but that's the first time, right? You guys have been working hard to get the word out, but I don't think it did, right? So I'm just asking, how do you go from getting that vote out, right, and deciding? So again, what are we cutting? And let's put it to a vote to the township before we take this big step. Thank you.
Hello, my name's Jennifer Hunter. I live at 601 Lennox Court in Weathersfield. I just wanted to also tell you that my HOA never said a word to me. I feel really lost because I live in this township and I'm driving through it all the time. And to be honest with you, until I got that postcard last week, I knew nothing that this was even going on. So I had to come and I felt like I needed to say something because these are very hard economic times for everybody right now. I don't think anyone would say otherwise. And I understand that we may need this in the future as our township is growing and getting, more congested. But is this the right time? And can we go slower? And actually what he just said, I was thinking of too. I recall in the past when there was something major going on, it would be on a ballot that people would have to vote yes or no. There's a lot of people that can't even come to meetings like this. A lot of elderly do not drive at night. People with little kids are home doing homework. They can't be to these things. So I think
I don't think enough people know that this is even a topic right now, and this is a lot of money that we're talking about. So I really hope that you guys take more time and maybe give all the people a voice in this at an election, that we can see about that. Thank you.
Good evening. Bill Belmonte, 103 Banbury Avenue. So first, I want to recognize our firefighters for everything that they do. These men and women don't just show up. They spend a lot of time sacrificing with their families to train. They put their lives on the line to protect ours. We're incredibly lucky to have that kind of support and dedication in our community for years. Thank you. Now, I know none of us want to pay more in taxes, especially in times where every dollar matters. I think I've heard that a bunch. But the truth is, our fire service is an insurance policy. You never like paying for insurance, but when you need it, you love to have it. A choking child, a cardiac arrest, a mangled car, a house on fire, take your pick. These are all lives on the line. The heart stops. You have 4 to 6 minutes for that brain to have any chance. There's no time for a second opinion. So you hope you never need them. But when you do, you hope that they have the best training, the right equipment, and enough people to respond quickly. That level of protection doesn't happen by accident. It's something that we in this community invest in together. We live in a great township. I think that's why we're all here. It's a township that we're proud of, we feel safe in, and that safety, that peace of mind is something worth investing in. Sometimes paying for things doesn't mean luxury. It means security, preparedness, and knowing that when the call comes in at 2 a.m., our community has the tools and support to get the help they need. So supporting this doesn't just mean raising taxes. It's about protecting what our community has and what makes our community strong. It's also about saying thank you to our first responders in a way that truly matters, by giving them the resources to keep doing their job well and to come home safely at the end of the day. Thank you.
Got to come down a little bit here. Hi, Brinder Gill at 107 Gwynmont Circle. First and foremost, to reiterate, thank you to all the heroes in the room here. Thanks to all the firefighters that help to keep our community and our loved ones safe every day. I too am not an expert on what all of this means and what do we actually need in terms of the force and all of that. I trust that this was put together and makes sense. The question I have is more so what's been already said today, which is, have we done our due diligence? I understand that there was a consultant that was reviewed, and then I guess we declined that. I think it's worthwhile. We've heard it multiple times from multiple people around the room that we need to try to reopen this and make sure we're making the right decisions. Heard great ideas like, hey, what are we going to do to try to cut to help to support the costs? That's a great idea. What other ideas do we have to try to mitigate these costs? Yes, surely we may need the additional support, but I think we need to do our due diligence to try to figure out what we can do to limit the costs. Thank you.
Hi, my name's Ruth Eisen, 607 Victoria Drive. I've not been here before for any reason, and I've heard a lot of interesting arguments and discussion that I just will briefly comment upon. I'm one of those HOA people who didn't get any information. So I'm also going to be the new president of my HOA, so that might change. Another thing is I've heard, that I've lived in the township for about 8.5 years, not as long as I've been elsewhere here in Pennsylvania and Montgomery County. The fire department and their efforts are tremendous here compared to where the township I used to live in. I'm all supporting of professionalizing the fire department. I think that really makes a lot of sense. The question I think we're all struggling with is how and when and how long is it going to take? I've heard some really strong arguments for, I guess the one that struck me the most was a criterion-based implementation plan. There's also, that makes a lot of sense to me. If we are going to quote unquote implement it more slowly or gradually according to some of the issues are on the table, I think a criterion-based plan makes a good deal of sense, and we can set those criteria in discussion with one another. I heard people talk about the impact on those with fixed income senior citizens. I hate to admit it, but I'm one of those now. And I wish I were working, but I'm not. And my feeling is that with the sewer and MTMSA increases and school board increases that we are recently implementing, all of which I gladly support and pay. How can we work this into a way that maybe just maybe a little bit take more time and easy without abandoning the goal of increasing professionalism of the police, of the, excuse me, of the fire department. So that's all I can remember. I came up to say I wasn't planning on speaking tonight, but thank you. And thanks to all the previous speakers because it really helped enlighten me on this matter.
Neil Franklin, 312 Stump Road, 3 houses down from the firehouse on Stump Road. Received this in the mail about how the chief wants to increase paid firefighters because of one reason or another. I have 1 year to go, and I'll have 55 years as a volunteer firefighter as well. I belong to another fire company up the road a little bit that used to protect this community until it decided to have its own Montgomery Township Fire Department. The reason I'm speaking here is I heard a lot of maybe ups and downs or whatever, but being 55 years going on as a volunteer, all these volunteers today, I like to ask them, how many years are they going to have as a volunteer? For one reason, I can't say that when you're a volunteer, normally you don't work in the town that you're protecting. So that's why it's hard to get response people today to answer a fire call. That's all I'm going to say is because I'm for having paid fire companies so we can have a 24/7 fire protection. The main reason I'm saying that is for the fire company to get there first, to get the people out of the house if they're in there. That's a priority that I look for. Thank you.
Any others?
Good evening, everyone. Bruce Whiteman, 206 Eisenhower Lane in Montgomery Walk. And listened to everybody talking. And I just spent 4 days visiting my son in Illinois, where no fire companies are volunteer. They're all paid and have been for 50, 60, maybe 70 years. So we're not used to paid full time. We're used to mostly volunteer. So this is new for us, but it's time that we move forward, because when your house is burning and burning to the ground, you wish they got there sooner. And the chief has given us an opportunity to have that. I think his plan is solid. I'm not a fire person myself, but my son has been for 25 years. I've had many conversations with him, and the stories he's told me about getting there quickly is so important, as that gentleman just said. I did the math, my property's valuation, looking at the charts that were put on the website. Thank you for all that information, by the way. It was wonderful. My bill's going to go up $13.14. I can't even eat at McDonald's for that.
I'll give that up any day of the week and twice on Sunday. I vote we move forward with the chief's plan as is. Thank you.
So after hearing everyone and talking like this, the high school renovation that had to go to a vote, like how does something decide that like that had to go to a vote, but this doesn't go to a vote? I'm just curious, like how that happens or how it works.
I was going to say our solicitor might be able to answer that for us.
Thank you very much. As far as staffing, so in Pennsylvania, under the second class township code and under the election code, there are only limited subjects that could be subject to a referendum. I've heard that. And school district and building projects is one of them. As far as staffing for the police or fire company or township employees, that is not. That's the preview of the Board of Supervisors, Council, Board of Commissioners, whatever the governing body is, the township. So if the Board of Supervisors said, I want to go ahead and have a vote on this, if they submitted it to the County Board of Elections, it would be declined. So that's the reason for this. So it would not be eligible to go for a vote under Pennsylvania law.
What a township can do when they want to go for a referendum is if they're going to borrow money to protect open space. So the Montgomery County, Bucks County, there are communities that aren't fully developed yet, that they will ask their residents, do you authorize us to borrow up to so much money to basically preserve land? And a lot of the communities will then go and vote on a referendum, either in the May election or in the November election. But to the solicitor's point, it has to go to the Board of Elections and be approved. They not only approve the content, they approve the language that's to make sure that it's a question that the average voter can understand. And to his point, we're not allowed to do any referendums other than that.
Anyone else?
So good evening. My name is Vinay Sethi. I live at 2005 Jefferson Court. I'm the deputy volunteer fire chief for the fire department. Over the past year of talking about this and hearing all those different sides, I see everything. The one thing that as a leader of the department I'm most concerned about is if we are going to get a fire truck out for an incident. There have been, Chief Wigman has provided the numbers that are coming, that are being gathered from the county, that are being entered into our system, and we're just running that report, pulling that up, and it shows that the trucks are taking longer to get out. Okay, there are less people getting on the trucks. There's times when I'm not sure if I'm gonna be able to get a truck on the road. We've had some incidents where we might not have had a truck, where we might have had to call mutual aid. So you're calling a department 5 miles away. If your house is on fire, that's 10, 15 minutes before that fire truck is getting there. I hope everyone's out of that house already. We are volunteer. I would love to have it the way we are at and have more volunteers come out. I urge anyone listening and anyone here, join. You can join. We have members who are 16 years old. We have members who are over 70. All volunteers. Okay. I've been doing this for almost 30 years. A lot of people have been doing the same as well. Eventually, some of the older people may not want to do it as long. Some of the younger people may want to do it for a long time. But if anyone here is willing to help out, come.
How many volunteers would we need to end this?
I can't give you that answer because, I mean, with the number of volunteers that we do have, it all depends on
I mean, people have obligations with their families, with their job.
Excuse
you
me,
know?
excuse me, Deputy Chief. We always appreciate your comments,
Sorry.
but please direct them to the board. This is not a question and answer back and forth with the public.
Yes.
Okay.
But I do urge anyone to join, okay? To apply, to become a volunteer, and go through the firefighter training. It's about 210 hours for firefighter one. Meets Tuesdays, Thursday nights, and on Sundays. Starts on February 1st. So put your application in, you go right to our website and join and help out. Thank you.
Steve Splendito, 220 Twining Road. I am a life member for the fire department. I'm also a charter member. How many of you know what a charter member is? Charter member is a member who started the fire department. Okay, I am one of 4 that are left out of a 25-person crew. Mr. Heinz over there, he was our president. Mr. Bean, myself, and there's one other. So it took you 4 directors to get it right. Okay, your first 2. Okay, this woman mentioned volunteers. They were anti-volunteer. They were not used to dealing with volunteers, and they really weren't interested in us. Okay, we fought. Okay, we got dressed in the snow over at Country Furniture to get a fire truck out when we first started. Okay, until they built Battalion 2. All right, so Bill comes along. All right, I got a lot of respect for Bill. He's a friend. Okay, he knew the volunteer aspect, but you're too late. You're not getting the firefighters out, the volunteers out, and now you're in a position where you have to do something. All right, now I live in the township. My taxes are going up, probably. Okay, I spoke to you at that town hall regarding an EMS tax. Okay, you're called a local tax. All right, I think the difference between the EMS tax and your local tax is what you do with it. Okay, EMS tax goes to cops, firefighters, and municipal. Okay, so maybe that tax money from that local tax that you levy against the businesses in town as opposed to the taxpayers that live in the township. Okay, maybe you can compensate from that to support his initiative, which I support. That's it.
Diane Hurd, Douglas Road, Montgomery Township. I just have a question. Has anybody asked why that consulting firm was turned down 3-2? I went on the website today and I was kind of surprised about that. And maybe if we could get a consulting firm to approve the plan, more people would be comfortable with it. Just an idea. Thank you.
Anyone else?
My name is Angel Mejias, 100 Winmont Drive. I've been with the fire department for almost 5 years now. I'm a fire police lieutenant, and I'm also the president of the FDMT Relief Association. The Relief Association mainly overlooks the volunteer side of the department. I've worked at corporate American finance for many years, I was a pastor for 11 years, and now I own my own business in the borough, in North Wilkesboro. And one thing that I've noticed in all the hats that I've worn in life is you can't always make everybody happy, internally speaking, right? You're always going to have your people who don't agree with change. We went through a system conversion once at a credit union that I worked at, and we had grumblings. You know, people weren't happy with the upgrades to the systems, and I think that happens in any organization. I think it speaks volumes of individuals and their character. Um, Chief Wigman has had an open door policy the whole time that I've been in the department. I've literally walked into his office multiple times and interrupted him, and he'll sit there and talk to you. So if there's something that I'm unhappy with, like somebody mentioned earlier, she spoke with a volunteer. He's had an open door, and I think just out of respect, people should step up and speak with that individual directly instead of, you know, we're talking about a emergency organization whose job is to protect all of us. I live in the township with my wife, who's also a member. My taxes are going to go up, and this whole process has been brought to us since immediately after that meeting that he originally had with you guys last year in October. It's all in our records, right? Since November, every monthly meeting since then, 13 times I counted today. This has been brought up, and every time that we discuss this, more information has been provided so that we can give our chief feedback on how we feel with this whole situation. I think a chief, a person who is looking to get rid of volunteers wouldn't do all the things that he has done since then. From inviting volunteers to join a proposal to look at how we can change Battalion 1 to fit a career staff and make it better for the responses. I think we had 6 volunteers, if I counted correctly, that signed up for that. I think a chief who was looking to get rid of volunteers wouldn't be speaking with the county's fire chiefs to create a tax rebate for volunteers. I don't think a chief who was interested in getting rid of volunteers would be having meetings with North Bend School District to have a tax relief. We have an excellent group of volunteers, and I don't think sometimes that they realize they might take some of these things personally because everybody kind of rejects change to one level. Our volunteer crew is just as good as our career staff, and we have an excellent career staff. We have an excellent volunteer staff. And a lot of the issues when we look at responses are not entirely because of the volunteers not coming out. I've seen these trucks driving down 309, lights and sirens. People don't get out of the way. We literally have people who will stop right in front of our vehicles and not move. So imagine if that's the big red engine with lights and sirens flying, trying to get to the scene. Some of these guys just trying to get over 309 to get to the firehouse or to get to the other battalion off Doylestown Road with no lights, all the traffic, even with blue lights, there's no courtesy. So, you know, those responses can be delayed. It makes a big difference, a huge difference. And data, you know, you can't argue with the data. Vinay mentioned we have reports every single month that show what the individual responses are to every single vehicle that is responding to an incident. And you can't argue the facts, right? So that information is coming from county. It's not something where we're jotting down these numbers and making things up. So it has nothing to do with our great professionals, you know, and it's just something that I think we need to consider. I would rather see something happen now than have a massive incident where we lose life and property because we couldn't get there on time. Thank you.
Evening. I'm Lee Morano, 305 Rutledge Court. I'm a member of the fire department. I'm not a fireman. I'm the captain of the fire police unit. I'm also the treasurer of the fire department. We talk about dwindling volunteers. I write the checks. The township supplies us with a tax incentive every year. In January, I write the checks to all our active members. We have 900 calls a year. You have to make a certain percentage of those calls to be considered an active member and receive the check from the township. Last year, I wrote 32 checks to active members. If there's anybody in this room that thinks 32 active members can cover 7 nights a week and weekends without the help of paid volunteer or paid firemen, I don't know how you can figure those numbers out. It's just, there's not enough volunteers. They're dwindling. People have commitments at home. My son joined and then resigned after a couple months because he had too many responsibilities with his 2 kids, and he just didn't have the time to come out and help. And it's that way for everybody. Everybody is against the tax increase. I'm against the tax increase. But if that's what it takes to get what we need to protect our homes and our family, then that's what we need. Thank you.
Good evening. Charles Murphy, 132 Holly Drive. Madam Secretary, board members, I had no intention of speaking tonight. There's been very compelling input from our community. No one wants an increase in taxes, for sure. There are financial pressures on all of us. However, my background is I worked for United Airlines for many years, coming out of the New York City area. I also was a volunteer in the ambulance corps in the New York City area. I'm a 9/11 responder. Spent 7 days down there at Ground Zero in New York City. My EMS partner who responded from the New York City court was killed in the collapse of the first tower. I arrived just after the second tower fell. And I was so overwhelmed by not only the devastation, but the amount of damaged fire equipment that was present. I was overwhelmed by the amount of response that came initially from the New York City Fire Department, from every borough in New York City. Throughout the course of that first day, the fire trucks kept coming from Albany, from Schenectady, from Connecticut, Massachusetts. By 5 o'clock in the evening, there were hundreds of fire trucks lined up along the West Side Highway in New York City. The equipment was there. The personnel was there. We don't know in our community what disaster is going to strike, whether it's an airplane crash, some sort of commercial warehouse fire, or something such as our log truck that overturned on 309 earlier this morning, causing a 5.5-hour closure of 309 North. But there was equipment there. I'm sure there was equipment that our chief doesn't use often, but we call upon the resources within our community and outside our community to respond to these unpredicted incidents. I don't want to pay a tax, but I'm so happy that when the one time I called the fire department, they were there to provide for my grandchild. $13, $18, whatever amount is based upon your current home value, I think is minimal. I support our chief's input. But as a consumer who's being bombarded with charges from a variety of sources, I think that our community would welcome the reassurance of a consultancy firm saying, hey, the chief's got it right. And that $13 or $18 is not terrible. When I was a resident in New York City, I knew there was police and fire there for me when I needed it. I have great confidence passing the firehouses in the community that we have the commitment and the equipment to do this. I've been a volunteer for many years, but because of my work schedule, I cannot commit to the schedule. I was blessed, my volunteer corps, I had steady Tuesday nights. I did a 12-hour shift. In our community, I can't be on call. I'm working in a hospital 6 to 6. So I do support the commitment, the paid staff, the increase, but again, for an effort to reassure our community that this is a sound idea. Again, we go to doctors for medical advice, not Dr. Google. We go to surgeons for their professional advice. We go to counsel to tell us what's legit and what's kind of not legit. Again, the reassurance of the consultancy firm, I'm sure, is going to validate our chief's recommendation and request for full-time staffing. I thank you for your time.
I'm here for the second time, but I'm not the first person here for the second time. I guess the rules aren't followed. There are several people that have talked considerably more than the 5 minutes. And I'm concerned that politicians, both Republicans and Democrats, don't give a damn about the bottom 10, 15%. The record from both parties for the minimum wage is a disgrace. There's people here that are hurting. If you look at all at the news, what's going on, it's hard to find the news because it's been suppressed. People are really hurting. Now, if you're going to push this thing through at this high rate, you want to give some sort of little way people can get away from this, a relief from this. They can apply for a relief because of the situation they're in right now. There's so many people out of work because the president has fired so many people from the federal government. Those services are now but can't be implemented. Then that goes on to the state. It all comes down to us eventually. Now, I think we have enough money and enough people that are wealthy here that we could come up with something to help the people on the bottom end and come up with a method that you could apply and get relief, at least for a year or two, until we get a decent president that gives a damn about people.
Okay,
And that's really what's going on.
Warren, if we could stay on topic with,
So that's,
that would
you
be
really,
appreciative.
you can do it, but you've heard people say, we're hurting. No, they want something. You got to come up with something in between. We're not broke district, but we have poverty sections in there. And some people on fixed income, some people have all sorts of other problems. They don't have much money, retirement's bad, or they got fired and laid off. One of the speakers here has to cut her heat simply so she can make ends meet. I happen to know who she is. I'd like to see some people in politics care about the bottom 10 to 15%. We're a district that could do that. Thank you.
Thank you. Any others? Anyone else wants to speak? What did you say?
The score of the game.
Oh, the score. All right. Okay, so come on up.
Adam Swislewski, 139 Polo Drive. I just want to say my HOA did distribute notice regarding the proposal that's going on.
You said they did or did not?
Did. Thank you, Montgomery Green. I've been a volunteer firefighter since 1989. I've also been involved in EMS since 1989. Not quite 55 years, but I'm getting there, hopefully. Didn't come out here really out here to talk today. I get super nervous, so I apologize. But for the members in attendance here, I've been the volunteer assistant chief for several years. I've also been a president of the department. It's quite disheartening to hear that because of one member having a negative experience for whatever reason, that kind of gets broadcast amongst the entire department. I've been under Chief Wigman's leadership for the past 6 years. He's done more for this department in that amount of time than anybody else that has preceded him in this time. He's been charged with coming up with a proposal and a way to do this, and I would have an enormous amount of faith for him to take us in the right direction. The support he has from the department, I think you can tell by the number of volunteers that we have here tonight, that the place can't be that bad to volunteer at. We continue to have membership activities, recruitment and retention committees for the department. Just the other night, Lieutenant Stump and I were out putting signs out in yards to come volunteer for Montgomery Township, and we even put the general ones out for Montgomery County to help some of the other departments, for people that have just been passing by through the area. So it's really nothing more for me to come up here and say that we appreciate all of Chief Wigman's efforts, and we wouldn't be here if we didn't support him in getting this done for the department and the community.
Okay. First of all, thank you to everyone. I know some folks that did speak also have left already, but really appreciate the input. I mean, this is really what it's about, is to hear from the community and, what folks are saying. And someone said it, I know I say it all the time, whatever decision is made, we're not going to make everybody happy. I know I always say it's what I would love to do is to make everyone happy, but I notice with every decision, every single topic, there's always two sides to it, really three sometimes. But anyway, with that said, I do think that I'm going to open it up to the board, and, we're just going to kind of talk a little bit about the budget, where we are with it. One of the things that we asked collectively at the budget meeting that was open to anyone to come to was to kind of give us a couple of scenarios. So, give us this scenario, this scenario, this scenario. So, it is not a done deal. It is not, a decision has not been made, fully been made. We know something has to happen. And like everyone has said so eloquently in different ways, it's just figuring out what that something looks like. And do we do it over the course of time? Do we do it all at once? Do we do it, just different ways to approach it? We just know that it is something that needs to be approached. So with that, I'm going to kind of open it up to the board to kind of just talk out loud. That's what we're supposed to do in front of our community. So.
Well, I'll just jump right in. So, as our solicitor mentioned, we are. Maybe I'll just talk up a little bit. There we go. How's this? Is that better? All right. So, Montgomery Township is a township of the second class, and under the Municipal Planning Code, we are required to provide these services. It's fire and emergency services. It's not optional. And unfortunately, we know that volunteerism has been waning. And so when the chief came to us with this proposal, it wasn't really the first time that we had heard this being discussed. And I'm saying this isn't the first time that we're hearing it, not just because the chief has mentioned it, but across the state. We are hearing this from other municipalities. We attend the conferences every year. We have these conversations with our peers across the state, and everybody's faced with the same dilemma. And how do you, sort of pay for expanding, your paid fire staff? It's basically, another unfunded mandate. You have to provide this service. Volunteerism is waning. We have to respond to the needs of the community. So when we came forward with this proposal, I dug right into the data. A data analyst by heart. It's, as I like to say to Audrey, it's my jam. So I dug right in to the data that was provided, and I had a lot of questions. Chief did a great job of answering those questions and providing more information. One of the things that I really wanted to see us do, however, because of some of the questions I had, was to work with consultants to provide some additional insight, really stress some of the assumptions that were made in this process so that we had a better sense of confidence over some of the conclusions that were reached in this process. Unfortunately, when it came to a vote, as we were approaching the budget cycle, we were looking at a staffing specific study, received 3 quotes, but it didn't pass. The majority of the board did not agree that they wanted to spend that money in this budget cycle for that additional professional oversight. I still remain convinced that we need another set of eyes on this. As I reviewed the numbers in this proposal, a lot of things are jumping out at me. In fact, Homer, if you're still, is Homer still here? There he is. Homer pointed out one of the things that I noticed as well, that, you know, in the first scenario where there is 0 firefighters in the expansion, there's a line that's in there for consulting for every other variable, hiring 11, or hiring 15. There's a $37,500 line item for consulting services, but that's not included in the first scenario. So we're increasing revenue, but we're not doing any consulting. I probed for information from staff that consulting service was not for a study, it was for a facilities plan. But we haven't seen a proposal for a facility study. In fact, one of the things that came out as a part of the discussions was that we thought the facilities that we had were adequate. Well, if they're adequate, then why are we budgeting in these scenarios for an additional facility study? So I just feel like there's some maybe inconsistency and maybe not a lot of transparency as it relates to what we believe our facility needs truly are moving forward. But I'll also tell you that in the capital investment plan, as a part of this, we don't have anything projected for facilities renovations in the capital projects. We also have a dwindling capital reserve fund. So, funding, to find the funding necessary to make any sort of renovation is going to necessitate another tax increase. So, and I'm saying this just, for the sake of transparency, that, I feel as if this does require further study, although I hear the need, and I do think the data does support making a move towards adding additional paid staff. But the number and the pace of that is something that I'm absolutely not convinced that we need to do 15 or 19 immediately to meet these needs. And although I again confess, and I think someone else had pointed it out, who on this board is a fire services expert. I don't confess to be, as much as I am a data analyst and have really crunched a lot of numbers throughout this whole process. I can see that there is a need, but how that need should be met, the pace that it should be met at, is beyond my pay grade, if you will. And I think we really, to ensure that we're doing our due diligence and to best serve our community and to be the strong fiduciaries for our township, I think we need to bring in an impartial, unbiased third party to really help us examine this and help us plan how we are going to expand our staff. Because I've said this, started with the comment about what our obligations are, and I'll finish that way too. This is not optional. We have to provide these services. And I think there's a need for us to add additional staff. I'm just at this point not convinced that adding it without adequately really examining and planning for like a phased approach is what I would think would be our our best bet. I'm seeing a need for the additional staff. I just think that we need some additional guidance in how best to phase that in.
I'll go next. I am very aware that this is something that we do need to have. It is our responsibility to provide public safety and infrastructure to our community, something we take seriously to the point where we have to acknowledge when we look at these scenarios, what scenarios are we not considering? What do we understand? What don't we understand fully? Consequences of this kind of hiring. Having a comprehensive fire study will give us some of those answers. This is why I voted for that in the first place. And I'm sad to say that we haven't already started that, because I do feel as if there is an immediate need for some changes. The issue is, what is the pace? What is the number? And what are the things that other communities have who are facing the same challenges that we are facing here in Montgomery Township? What are some of the things they have learned as they have expanded? Many other communities are dealing with major volunteerism issues with their fire staff. And I do think that we do need to transition into something that is paying our firefighters for their unbelievable service. But I do think that we need to be cautious, and putting this in front of experts is, to me, something that before I can really make a decision on something like this, I would like to see someone give me that confidence in that. And hearing from you in the community has been so important to me. Again, we sent this postcard out 2 weeks ago. We got it in the mail a week ago today, I believe. I got it in my mailbox as well. And I'm so glad to see so many people showing up and responding to this, because it is something that is important to all of us. So I just want to make sure that we're listening, we're hearing you. We want to make the best decision for the community, for our firefighters, but also for our taxpayers as well.
I will go next. Obviously, it's something that we do need to do. I did not vote for the study. I do feel that we have an expert in our chief. I've been on this board 16 years and I've seen what he has done. He has turned the fire department around. No one else was able to do that. I have complete faith in the fact that he is our study. He has known about the problem. We asked him, how do we fix it? He gave us the answer. It's pretty simple. None of us want to increase taxes, but I want a fire truck. I want a fire truck staffed with people. In a perfect world, Bill would like 19 additional hires. We've talked about other ways we can do this. There's a compromise that we could hire 11. If we hire 11, that allows him to have 4 on a truck, and it allows those people, those new hires, to have a 24/72 schedule. This is what every department has gone to, because nobody wants a 24/48. If we're going to do this, shouldn't we do it so that the people we're hiring have a chance at mental health and a work-life balance, the things that we all want? That's all I have to say.
So I grew up in North Philly. So as a child, you called the fire department. They were there because they were paid. When I moved out to Montgomery County, Harleysville in 1985, my then husband brought me out to Harleysville, and I went, where the heck am I? And realized that there are volunteer fire departments that had to take care of us. Being here in Montgomery Township since 2016, I have come to appreciate our fire, our EMS, our police, our public works. Each and every one of the departments that are here help us as a community to have a better way of living. Of the supervisors here, I am the one
who is living single, one income household in our township. When I tell you I don't want to raise taxes, I don't want to raise taxes. I hear about the sewer, I hear about the school district. I have to go out and find health insurance. This is a burden to everyone, and I understand that burden. I also understand that saving money is part of it. And that is why I voted against a consultancy service. We were looking for staffing information. And as Candace said, we have our expert. The chief has done an excellent job. He knows his department, and that is the paid staff as well as the volunteers. And he came to us October of last year and said, we've got a problem with volunteers. And this is not just our problem, this is everyone's problem. What's the solution? And that's where the talk started. We had over 11,000 postcards go out in the mail to our residents and businesses. Yes, we had a relatively full house today, but what percentage came out because of those postcards as well? We all need to be more aware of what's going on in our township. And as an outgoing supervisor, I will tell you, I will keep an eye on what continues to go on here, because that's one of the things that we all as a community need to do. We need to be aware of what's going on throughout our community. And it's difficult because we have our full-time jobs, we've got our families, we've got our lives. But I am encouraging everyone to keep an eye on what's going on. As Vinay said, you have opportunity to volunteer. We would love to have more volunteers come do the work, come take the training, and help supplement our fire department. Again, Chief is our expert, and we did came in originally with 19. He does have the National Fire Police or the Fire Association that tells us how many we should have on board. That was when a change came there. We do have options that came up because we've talked about how do we do this better because of the tax. If I hit the lottery tomorrow and I could say, here you go, I'll make that contribution and I'll put that out publicly. No taxes because we won the lottery. That won't happen. Not necessarily, right? So how do we make an increase that is affordable to more people and that we can actually do what Chief needs to do with our fire department? I agree with Chief. I think he is our expert, and I think we need to do this the way the fire department is calling for.
Why am I always the last to go?
In summary.
In summary. I think one of the things that really stuck out for me tonight, because I live in an HOA, that there were a lot of HOAs that the word did not get out to, or at least their HOA didn't share. So, maybe the word did get to them, but they just didn't share. I will tell you this, I don't know if my HOA got the notice that was sent out, but I'm going to check. Because I live in an HOA, I proactively reached out and asked if Chief would come, because there was initially conversation on this being, the tax increase to be, it's a concern for anyone. Taxes going up should be a concern for anyone, but specifically for 55 and over communities. And I live in one. I wasn't 55 when I moved there. Truthfully, I wasn't. But I live in a 55. And then it was, let's try to look at other areas. Neshaminy Falls, I asked, could he do something there? Just a couple of HOAs that I was familiar with and maybe someone I knew there, I asked them, are you able to reach out to your HOA and see if, they're willing to do something? Chief's willing to go wherever, to talk to whoever about this. Hate to say it, that as much as we've done, I think really have tried to get the word out, I guarantee you there will be someone who didn't hear about this, which also breaks my heart because, you know, I know all 5 of us, as well as our our township staff, the goal is to get the word out, talk about it, figure it out together. At the end of the day, we were voted in to make a decision on behalf of the community. We represent the community. Um, you know, I am retired. I have been for 5 years. I am on a fixed income. Yeah, I don't want a tax increase, but I also want to remain safe. And so, as it has eloquently been said now a number of times, it's not really a situation of if we're going to do it, it's when and what does it look like. Um, with regard to the staffing study, I shared back when we voted on it, I think even maybe prior to that, because the topic came up a couple of times. And this was me putting my old corporate hat on in for 32 years in banking and having worked with several consulting firms. I have always said, I will continue to say, that from a staffing perspective, nobody knows it better than the people who do the work every day. I'm going to say not even the people who do the work every day, and they know it better than the leaders. They know it better than the leaders. So when my teams would come to me and talk about, hey, I'm struggling, it was my job as their leader to bubble that up, get it going, talk about it, and how do we fix it? And so that was always the approach I attempted to take as a leader. Fast forward to where we are today, and Chief presented to us back in October for the first time that it was ever mentioned, that I can remember that was ever mentioned to us. And then, you know, moving forward, he presented, and I'm going to call it like I've said it out loud. I think to him, I'll say it out loud now. I did it as a leader. You ask for everything, hoping you get something, but you ask for the best scenario, the best situation, because you want to give your team the best and you want to be the best. You want to be able to show up and show up well. So I'm not mad at him for, you know, putting together a proposal that was really a great full complement proposal. When I look at now, us having the opportunity to sit and talk about at budget time, just conversations over and over about this topic, extremely important topic. We now have looked at and still looking at other scenarios of the proposal. So that's where we are. We're looking at other scenarios of the proposal. And back to, I want to mention again about the staffing study. I was not on board for the staffing piece of it. Not on board for the staffing. I feel we have the experts. We have the folks that do the work every day. We have leaders that have said to us, we have an issue. I mentioned at another meeting, I will say it again. I reached back to a former supervisor from 10 years ago who said this was a problem then. And it has just gotten to be more. When it is time to look at our structures, our equipment, and, you know, Chief has said that it's not something we need to look at right now. I am 100% on board with bringing in a consulting, because to me, then now we're not the experts. He's not the expert. I mean, I don't know that Chief can talk about the buildings, and does it make sense to keep 2 or 1, or we should bring in someone to really dive deep into that. But from a staffing perspective, I felt like we had the experts on board. So with that said, with regard to the budget, and I don't know where everybody else is with it, one of the things that got talked about was that we need to, and we want to, have an opportunity to just look at the numbers again, because if there's anything that, like Tanya shared, you know, this is her thing with the numbers, and there were some very, you know, stuff that was pointed out by community, by board members, that maybe we need to just look at them again, make sure the numbers we have in front of us for 7, 11, 15, 19 are accurate, that the community has seen it, so that we feel comfortable to be able to talk about it as a board to anyone who asks us, that we want to possibly get together for another meeting to talk about that. So I don't know, I'm there as far as being able to sit and look at the numbers a little bit further. We know that we hope that we can adopt a budget by the end of this year, but we have a responsibility that from the time we say, okay, we're good with the numbers, it has to be advertised to the community. So we have to keep all of that in mind with regard to, if this is something that'll happen by the end of the year for the first of the year. So I welcome.
I would say I would support having an emergency meeting as long as we could do it within a appropriate time frame to give staff an opportunity to answer some of the questions that we had in terms of the financial projections with all the different scenarios. Some of those, some of the expenses associated with the staffing increase were shown as flat in this proposal, whereas we know that they would increase if we added additional staff. So it shouldn't really be a flat number, 0 versus 7 versus 11 versus 15. Yet that's what's in here. Those are the types of things that need to be addressed. I mean, at this stage, I wouldn't feel comfortable really supporting any of these scenarios. And again, would like to see consulting fees included to do a comprehensive fire study. Again, because I think we need to do our due diligence, and this is no disrespect to the chief. I think this adds resources to his team. It helps him develop, or either validate the plan that he's presented or develop an even better plan that's going to meet the needs of our community. So I would definitely be in support of, tabling this for now, calling another emergency meeting this week so that we could revisit these numbers specifically.
Where do we sit legally if the report comes back that we need 7 on a truck or 7 full-time as opposed to, the 4 or 5? Where are we legally with that? Does that open us up to any liability?
Of course, you can, municipalities are sued all the time for all sorts of various reasons. As far as being opened up legally, various municipalities commission reports for police, fire, all the time. It's up to the Board of Supervisors in your discretion to either follow those recommendations or not follow those recommendations. You should always look and take those actions very seriously, and perhaps that could be raised in a discovery question. But just because the board chose to not follow a recommendation doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to be open to more exposure in a lawsuit.
But you could be.
Always.
Right.
You can sue for anything. Yes,
It
depends.
depends.
Sure.
All right, well, I don't know if I need to make a motion, or can I just say that we want to we'll look at having a meeting?
I would suggest you make a motion to call, so the public hears, staff has clear direction to call a public meeting. I believe you wanted, was it this Friday in the brief discussion? So the date of that is, let's see, the 14th. So November 14th at 10 a.m. in the Township Building. Was that what the consensus was?
Yeah.
Yes.
So I would suggest somebody make a motion to direct staff to advertise that public meeting.
So moved.
Second.
Second.
Oh, I have to.
oh, you
Or
can-
did
I made the motion.
make the motion?
Per the solicitor's statement.
Right.
Seconded by Audrey.
Second.
And any public comment?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Thank you again, everyone. Thank you. With regard to this topic, thank you. We still have stuff, don't we?
Well, we still have, we're still not done. We're not done.
Thank you.
Some more stuff on the
Thank you.
topic. It's over for you. We have some-
Hey,
All right.
we still have the budget meeting to.
Yeah.
Madam Chair, do you
Okay.
do you still want to do the budget presentation tonight, or do you want to save that for Friday as well? I mean, it's the discretion of the board. Oh, it's 9:30.
Yeah. I welcome you guys' thoughts. I mean, I feel like, is there any, I mean, this is the one piece of the budget that seems to be, the topic of conversation, as you have explained at our working session, that for the most part, everything else is just kind of status quo. But I welcome if, we want to still just talk about specifically anything.
I can give you some highlights tonight of the PowerPoint slide we have, and then we can dive into the numbers on Friday.
I mean, what you're, when you say trying to go through the numbers, we talked about it at our working session. So is there, I guess these are like changes or whatever to it?
Yeah, they're not.
Okay, thank you.
So I wanted to start with just giving you sort of an overview. Obviously, the budget is a ton of numbers, and now we're talking beyond fire. So we're talking all funds, all other departments. So I thought the easiest thing to do, just to give you a break from numbers for a change, is just to start with some slides, just sort of giving you a picture of the township, because really we only talk about this once a year. And a lot of times it's, it goes from you jump from one thing to the next and then off you go. So to start with our tax base, we have 10,182 taxable parcels in the township. That generates a little over $2 billion, believe it or not. But there are 209 exempt parcels representing $72 million of assessed value that we cannot get real estate taxes on. Everything from churches to some of the nonprofits. Obviously, we just saw an appeal go in for Mitzvah Circle, which we're really blessed to have in our township, but it is a nonprofit. So they made an appeal for their tax and they were successful. We're also seeing now a number of businesses starting to put in again for an evaluation to reassess them. Residential is not so much for us because we are the smallest portion of the tax bill. And usually when it's a large taxpayer, the school district will take the lead on it because they get more impacted. So if someone like Target comes in and says, we want to see if our property can get reassessed, obviously it's going to have a greater impact on the school district. But still, this is where we get our money from. We're very fortunate because we also have earned income tax, and we have a number of residents who work in all different kinds of fields. We have a business privilege tax, and we have a mercantile tax, which a lot of communities don't and can no longer get them. We're grandfathered in. So as far as residential, we have 9,461 residential parcels. And our residents pay on average $491 a year in property taxes. And I'm really sorry that everybody seems to have gone, because I think this is really important. Because one of the things I did hear from several board members when we were talking about fire was people hear their taxes are going up and they think their taxes in totality. So they think of all the real estate taxes they pay in a year and they think it's going up that much. They don't understand that we're such a small portion, and a lot of them don't even see the bill, because if you have a mortgage and it's escrowed, the tax tax bill will go right to your mortgage company. So the average home in the township is assessed at $166,938. And our property taxes are 2.94 mils right now. And again, statements were made about the tax increases, and because you were here when we came in, we had no capital investment plan. We had a laundry list of things that had to get done, and they weren't all the things that people see. So, there were stormwater issues. We had traffic signals that had to be replaced because we could no longer put the mechanisms in the controller box because the controller boxes were so old and obsolete. You found out we didn't have preemption on major arteries through the township. We were still operating on sonic preemption, which has proven not to work. And even PennDOT said, before we put preemption at 5 points for you on our dime, you're going to start doing the arteries in your next few budgets, which we did. So we came up with a laundry list of $15 million of projects. And to Ms. Drosnock's point, when she talked about the sewer authority, everything is going up. And unfortunately, a lot of our assets came on board at the same time. So a number of our traffic signals went at the same time. They became, you can't get parts for them, or trying to repair them, it's Band-Aids. It's Public Works is taking things from their shelf and hoping that it works. All this was put on the board when they came in addition to a pandemic. So then the most recent tax increase was because the chair at that time recognized that we don't have a funding stream any longer for capital. When we were going through our 80s and 90s where development was just going wild in the township, we had developers contributing money that we put aside towards capital improvements. They paid fees in lieu of. They paid money as a result of not putting in a tot lot, so they had to put in money towards our park fund. That dried up. Again, Shannon said 98% of the township's already built out. There is no room. Luxor was an anomaly. The last development we saw was 32, 36 homes behind the Wawa. We are past that. That ship has sailed for us. Now we're looking at redevelopment. There's infill. So you've seen some homes coming in 2 and 3 lot subdivisions. That is not going to materially change what we do as a township. The North Penn School District and the Montgomery County obviously are 2 separate taxing authorities, and we cannot control what they do. I wish we could, but we can't, nor can we be beholden to them when they increase their taxes. And this, I apologize, it's hard to read on the screen, but out of the 38 townships in Montgomery County, we are currently ranked number 23 in terms of our millage at 2.94. Last year when we did this in the fall, we were ranked number 19. So there are some communities like Lower Frederick that have increased their millage and now they're higher than us. But if you look at the ones at the bottom, you look at Perkiomen, you look at Skippack, you look at Worcester, they have one thing in common. None of them have their own police departments. They are currently relying on state police coverage for their safety of their residents. And to Ms. Bamford's point, under the second-class township code, you're required to provide police. It doesn't tell you how, and those communities have chosen to rely on state police. And just because there's skip-back barracks does not mean those state troopers are sitting there waiting for calls to come to those communities. You go all the way up at the top, and you see Cheltenham Township, whose millage is almost 10 right now. If you look at the last column, you see the assessed valuation and what 1 mill will bring in. So in Lower Marion, which is currently number 12, their millage is at 4.462. A mill brings in $7.6 million, which is just, to me is mind-boggling. Upper Marion brings in $4.1 million. So Upper Marion brings in twice as much as we do. And we've talked about, so the value of our mill, I think you're doing an incredible job when you consider the fact that you're under 3 mills. A mill brings in $2.1 million, and you're able to fund full-time police. You now contribute a substantial amount to have career staff. You also make a contribution to VMSC because we don't have our own EMS, but we have one that we want to see succeed and be available to our residents, and they're here on our campus. So we're very fortunate with that. This is a picture of the North Penn School District, and you'll see this does include the boroughs because I didn't want to exclude. I want to really represent North Penn School District. So Upper Gwinnett is the lowest millage, followed by Montgomery Township. Hatfield Township, which is also a second-class town, first-class township, 5.2 mills. So again, like you are providing the same services. I would argue you're providing even more with the amount of parks that you have for 2.94 mills. And one of the things that is a goal for 2026 is we have to do a better job of getting the word out. I don't know how, I don't know how many different ways to do it, whether it's podcasts, whether it's, blurbs on Instagram, whether it's touting ourselves on our electronic signs. That's something to be proud of, that you're under 3 mills and we're not doing anything in our levels of service. We're not dismantling anything. We're not reducing anything. You have a rec center that's running over there that, Mr. Schaefer said to you, his goal was to fill that parking lot after the pandemic, and fill it he has, and filled with people who want to be there and who are using it for what it's intended to be, which is sort of a gathering point for people in this community. The next page we have is our average tax bill. So the average tax bill, which we said is $491. Currently, we have $190 going to the general fund. So that covers your police, that covers code enforcement, administration, finance, public works. $94 of it goes towards the dedicated fire fund, which pays for our career staff. $87 goes to the park fund, and that is the public works employees who are solely responsible for the maintenance of the parks and all the equipment and everything else that goes with it, all the maintenance. Our debt service fund, $45 goes to that, and that's just to cover the 2021 general obligation note. It also covers the debt that was on the rec center, which when you got here, you found out to your surprise, there was no revenue stream ever set up to cover that debt. They were hoping that it would make enough money every year to pay the debt. It's not. They were hoping there would be a guaranteed stream coming from the general fund. And as you know, we can't from year to year know what's going to happen in the general fund. And then $75 goes to capital. And to Ms. Bamford's point, that is not sufficient in the past to be able to start replenishing it at the levels we need. It's still giving us $853,000, which we didn't have before. But when you look at our road projects, which now we're telling Mr. Reif he has to use solely the liquid fuels money we have, but yet we also have to do curbing and we have to do handicap ramps, which cannot be paid out of liquid fuels. I would argue the curbs are holding the roads up. They should be able to come out of liquid fuels, but I don't make that decision. So that has to come out of our coffers as well. If you break it down further and you look at the general fund allocation that we talked about, $190, you'll see $108 goes to police, $45 goes to general services, $25 goes to public works, $9 to code enforcement, and $3 to tax collection. And the tax collection is obviously the majority of his Berkheimer associates because they collect our earned income tax, our local service tax, our mercantile tax, as well as our business privilege tax. Also in general services is administration and finance as well, and our GIS. And then this is just a graphic representation of an average tax bill. So we're going to use some of this to put out publicly, when, a newsletter at the beginning of the year, even if it's just a couple pages, it just sort of touts what we did in 2025, says what we want to do in 26 and how we're doing it. It's not magic. I know people don't want to see their taxes go up. I don't want to see my taxes go up. But I would say to everybody, could you run your household in 2025 on what you made in 2010 or 2015? And most people are going to say no. So the township is in that same situation. We bid where we have to bid. We use state contract where we can use state contract. We just locked into our electric rates, because we wanted to make sure we knew electric's not going down. Even with all the sustainable initiatives, I don't see electric going down dramatically. We wanted to lock it in. So we're doing everything we can to be fiscal stewards. And we're constantly aware that this is taxpayer money. And taxpayers, they want their amenities and they want their quality of life and they want their public safety. There's a cost to it. But I would argue that we really run lean and mean. The majority of our costs are forward facing to the public. It's the police they see on the streets. It's the fire they hear and the EMS going by, the parks that they recreate in. That's all that, coming from their tax dollars. And then the last one I have for you is just this one I love because it's a dollar bill and you can see 79% of that dollar goes to the school district, 14 to the county, and 7% is us. And nothing has changed materially since your budget work session. We do need to talk about the capital. And, if you want, we can just touch on it tonight and then go into it more on Friday. But I think the message remains, we cannot continue at the pace we were in the last 5 years. We've used up the money from the borrowing. The general fund, fortunately, has had 2 successive years where it had a surplus, but that surplus is not guaranteed. If we do go into an economic downturn and people start buying less, that is going to affect obviously our mercantile tax and our business privilege tax. If we're hearing tonight, if that does come to fruition and there are companies in the area that our residents are working at, that they either, see a furlough or a layoff or something else, that would affect our earned income tax. So there's a lot of question marks there. The flip side of not having that one sole employer is that we don't know what everybody does for a living and we don't know where they're doing it. And we don't know years they're getting bonuses or not. So we are going to have to really look at what we're doing going forward. This year, we're fortunate that we're able to use our capital reserves that we still have. There's also a proposal to take money from the general fund and put it into capital reserves. But I've already talked to the department heads at length that this is sort of where the rubber meets the road. And there's not a guarantee, even for some of these, if we start seeing a downturn in 26 and things aren't looking good, we don't, just because it's in the budget doesn't mean we go out and do it. We come to you and we say, we're putting a bid out. Do you authorize us to go for a bid? And if you're not comfortable with it, you can say, no, we're not at this time. Let's put the brakes on it. Grants, we've been very fortunate in the grants that we receive. So we're doing the English Village Shopping Center traffic signal. And because of the grant we got, we're splitting the cost with Horsham, which is going to be probably about $85,000 for each of us for a $700,000 project down there. That's something, the grant money is going to go somewhere. So it might as well come to Montgomery Township. The same thing with the RRFB and rapid beacon that's going to be put on Stump Road with the sidewalk to get to the rec center so that people who live in Luxor can come all the way down Stump, cross over, walk on sidewalk, get to the rec center, go back over, continue to the township building they want, or Montgomery Elementary, or even the parks across from Montgomery Elementary. That money came from grants as well. But we're also looking at Knapp Road down, which I spoke to Shannon about tonight. So we know those culverts have to be replaced. We paid Gilmore to have a specialized team go underneath and take pictures, and we shared the report with you, and we'll share it again this year. That's going to have to be done, and that cost is going to be shared with Lansdale. I'm hoping we'll get a grant because of the fact that it's so close to a school and the fact that there's 2 municipalities that are involved in it. But again, the state's not a funnel of guaranteed money either. So we're going to be really aggressive with our grant applications. We're on the list for the RACP grant. So we have money on there. We just had to throw some numbers together for the farmhouse in Windlestray. We have money for the public works building, should we have to do anything there. We have money for one of our parks, and we have money on there for a band shell if we would ever move in that direction. So by being on that list, that puts us in line that when the state has money they're allocating, our state reps have put that forward and it made the state's list. So we know they're sitting there, and it's just a matter of what we do now with it. Everything that's on the capital list that we vetted with you is things that are necessary. Some things carried over, and it's unfortunate, but there were some delays in engineering and design, and we just had no choice. We just had to move forward with them. I know Greg explained to you about the emergency generator and the electrical upgrades in public works.
And the street sweeper.
We have to have a street sweeper because of our stormwater requirements. It's not just to get everything. I mean, some people think we do it so we can remove leaves. That's not the case. We do it to keep the storm sewer system clean and free of debris. If we don't do it, then we're going to be in violation of our MS4 permit. So we have to do that. The English Village signal we talked about, the RFBs on Stump Road we talked about, the Enclave Basin, which I'm going to have a discussion with Gilmore Associates based on what I'm finding out about how it might as well be a pond and
It is a pond with big fish in it.
Big fish. Seriously. Obviously the power line connector trail, but DVRPC has committed the funds to finish that project, but that has to get done this year. And then the pedestrian bridge over Montgomery Elementary. You know, that's just driving by it, I cringe because it looks like it was sort of like put together by somebody who said, I've got a little bit of a, you know, some wood that we can make the bridge out of, and oh, here's some cyclone fence to make sure nobody like falls into it. We need to make it safe and handicap accessible as well. So that's on there. The police have a couple of vehicles on there. And I know when I started out, I couldn't understand why police got replaced at the rate they did, because I would look at the mileage, forgetting the fact that they are constantly running. If they were to turn the cars off, then all that mobile data terminal, everything goes back down and has to be booted up again. So they're in there. But I would argue, you know, I heard somebody tonight say about, you know, we need to cut. And where would I cut? You know, if I cut things out of capital, all it means is the general fund money would then go to fire, but that means that's a one-year Band-Aid approach. You know, I don't have any place that I could honestly say that I could cut without it impacting the residents directly. So if you say, let's cut the maintenance in the parks, the phone calls are going to come in that they're starting to look bad or the trash is not getting picked up. We are a service organization and everything we do is based on the people here, you know, but you know, I looked at our roster and we have not grown substantially in any area since this board has been in place. You know, we have sort of done more with less. You know, when we had the pandemic and we did some furloughs, we reevaluated. We didn't just bring everybody back. We looked and said, do we really need these many people in finance, or do we really need an assistant to the township manager? And we have identified talents and people in-house that, you know, we're utilizing now. We don't need to bring in additional people. When Mary Ann was promoted, you know, I said to her, what do we need to do? And she said, I really could use somebody just part-time to cover like a busy section of my day. And we found a township resident who was looking to get back in the workforce. And it was a win-win for both of us. So, you know, anybody who wants to talk about budget and not just numbers, but the theory behind it, I'm happy to do so with any resident. Maybe we'll do another podcast and talk about budget for a change, you know, but everything has a cost, you know, whistle stop, you know, yes, the park is not in our township, but it's our park. The story just blows my mind that we have a park that's in Hatfield Township, but it's dated and it needs to be improved. And we want to put some pickleball courts there because that's what the current recreation trends are pointing to, not a underutilized or non-utilized baseball field. Or the softball field utilized. So we're not talking about taking that, we're just talking to be a refresh. We're talking about putting ADA equipment in there so that children can play next to their friends and next to their siblings and not just isolated off to the side on one or two pieces that sort of separates them from everybody else. But we got a grant from DCNR as well as DCED, and we put a request in for the local share, in which we haven't heard back from the Commonwealth Finance Authority yet. And that's a lot. I'm sorry.
Thank you.
I apologize.
No, that's what we're here for.
So just to kind of highlight though the quandary that we're in as it relates to that capital fund. So the total that's available now or projected to be available by the end of this year is $9,888,300, correct? And the planned expenditures for 2026 are $11,572,300, correct?
Yes, that's including liquid fuels.
And to get us there, we're planning on transferring 3.5 million from the general fund.
Yes.
To the capital reserve fund.
Yes, and it's important to note just that because I looked at this before tonight's meeting. You did adopt a fund balance policy in 2023. This was one of the recommendations that we had made, and the board adopted it. GFOA recommends between 20 and 25% for your reserves. And you adopted a fund balance policy that said if your reserves go below 20, it's on staff's duty to come in and tell you and then come up with a plan on how we're going to replenish it. If we go over 25, we're also supposed to alert you to that as well. With this $3.5 million transfer, you're about 27%, which is right around the recommendation for GFOA on the higher side, which is a good thing. However, if we don't have a substantial surplus at the end of 26, it's a different story for next fall when we talk about capital.
Right, because the balance then, if we were to move forward on every project on this list, and we, generally see carryover from year to year, but if we were to move forward with everything that was planned, then the fund balance would go to $963,000 for the following year, and we already have $4 million in projects planned for that year.
Yes.
So a substantial shortfall,
yes, absolutely.
That may or may not be able to, be fixed with a transfer. So again, it's just something that we're going to have to plan for adequately.
And two of those projects, to your point for 27, two of them are traffic signals. So Route 309 and Northwoods Road, which we have to do, but we want to make sure the developer does everything that they're obligated to do first. And then 463 at Lansdale Avenue and Taylor Road. Like I hear, right, exactly. So now we're hoping that anything we do, we'll also be able to fix the timing there. But we had to prioritize. There were other intersections that had to get done first. English Village, when we're done, there will be dedicated left turn both sides, which we had to fight with PennDOT on to prove to them how dangerous it is. Plus, we have pedestrians crossing there, which I know they didn't believe at first till they went out and did a site visit and saw it themselves. There are people who live in the apartments behind English Village who are crossing over, and there are kids there. And we all know, head button or no head button, kids are going to just be daring when they cross. So we had to figure out how to time the left turns and allow pedestrian crossings as well, along with right turn crossings, because, again, keeping on a pedestrian to have the right of way. Those two projects alone are about $1.2 million. And there's nothing fancy. There's nothing that's going to be a ribbon cutting for. They're just two traffic signals that desperately need to be brought forward.
But, that Knapp Road project, there's it's a little over $1 million in
share with Lansdale
in 2027.
Yes.
So anyway, I was just projecting forward to go. All right, and we're going to have less than $1 million left in the fund as of 2027. So we're going to have to make the necessary provisions to supplement that fund some way.
Absolutely. And we can't, we do our best with our grant applications, but we also can only apply to the ones that we know fit our projects. And, we saw what happened in Canterbury with the storm sewer. We don't know that that's not going to happen anyplace else. Those corrugated metal pipes that are all over this township underneath the roads, until we televise them, we're not going to know where we stand.
Do we have
Yes,
televising project?
We do.
When,
A snake with a camera.
Yes, you approve that for public works. And
I know.
love you for it because they are able to go out there, and that's how he determined just what these.
That wasn't my question. You guys jumped on me. So the question was, do we have a plan? Are we working with our GIS coordinator to come up with a plan to map all of that out using that technology?
Yes.
Okay.
We're working with Jen as well as with Gilmore because they have some history as well as far as what's been replaced already. So yes, that is the plan, to make another GIS, make another level of, that we could turn it on and off using all of our roads. So we also have in the budget, there's a software that you can buy that you can put your camera on a truck and you can drive the roads and it will tell you where there's alligator cracking, and then we'll import that into GIS and she'll create a map for us as well so that we can have, a map of not only the roads that we are done and like which ones were done in the last 5 years, 10 years, but also where, if I want to say, okay, where is the worst cracking, I can click that layer and we'll see it. And they're also updating it now to include signs too, so that instead of having employees out there noting that there's vegetation covering a stop sign, it'll do it for us. It'll show us where we have issues or where signs faded. So
I am,
AI is an amazing thing when it's used properly.
and I love what we're doing with our GIS. I mean, really, I mean, it's been, I feel like we're definitely leading in that capacity, and it's a wonderful thing to see. I'm just wondering when we thought we might have that complete.
It's going to be based on when Greg's staff can finish the televising. So I would say definitely by the second quarter of next year, we should have it all done.
Oh, great. Because that'll really help us calculate those
Absolutely.
expenses as well. I didn't have any other questions. Those were.
Thank you. And I feel like, wow, I wish our full house was here to hear.
The one thing I will finish with though, so the rest of the budget, fire aside, there is no proposed tax increase of any kind for, to cover our operations. Our operations, what we bring in revenue sustains our operations, so we don't have to have that discussion. But to Ms. Bamford's point, there's going to need to be discussion if we're going to try to continue on doing the capital. I mean, things just cost more. If, tennis courts get used, but they also, again, to Shannon's point, like they were put in at the same time in some of these developments, and now they're needing the stone duster. We're like, the only good thing about that is how many years we'll get before another board is going to be confronted with that. Unfortunately, you're facing all of it right now.
Thanks, Carolyn. Thank you. Okay, so do we need to talk about item number 14, which was the authorization to advertise the 2026 budget, but we're not doing that. Sean, that's kind of directed to you. Can we just move from that?
Is that?
I assume you're going to do that in conjunction with the Friday meeting.
Yes,
Yeah,
correct.
so, yeah.
Okay. I just wanted to make sure we didn't need to say anything more there.
Do we need to officially table it since it was on the agenda?
Sure, that's probably the right thing. You should probably table the proposed fire staffing expansion budget and the 2026 proposed township budget to the Friday meeting. That's the smoothest thing to do.
So moved.
Second.
All right.
Any public comment? All those in favor? Aye.
Oh, wait.
Oh,
There is.
oh.
Come on.
Moved on, but a request on the budget. Kelly Elizardo, 119 Embassy Drive. On the budget, it would be extremely helpful if we could see an end of year projected expenses and revenue. Right now, it just goes year to date. So it's hard to look at ending balances and beginning balances for next year. So I think most people assume there's level spending, and I don't think there is when I look at some of the numbers. So I think it would be extremely helpful to see that end of year projection.
That is in essence, excuse me, that is in essence there in the beginning fund balance.
Yeah, I think it was probably buried in there, but when you look at the expenses and revenue, it's not showing up that way.
Okay.
So when you look at the end of year balance, something's shifting from end of year this year to beginning of year next year. The numbers aren't tying.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. That's the projected difference in income and expense.
That's kind of what I
between-
assumed,
yeah.
but it would be nice to see that at the line level that you've shown. I'm sure it's in the system. It's just not putting out that way. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Since I sat here 3 hours to ask this question, I will ask it. In the budget, there had been a request made a couple of weeks ago to have a porta potty installed at the Knapp Road Dog Park. Is that in the budget for next year?
No, it's not.
It is not.
No.
Would you please consider it?
That's the board's discretion.
We'll
So I
consider
think-
it.
we are considering it. So I think I actually
Mr. Chair?
talked to Greg about it, and the last thing I had heard was that he was looking into the cost. You may know more.
Yeah,
Beth,
we're getting
for
cost
that.
estimates.
Yeah,
Talked about
cost
this
I,
as
I,
well.
I know
Yeah.
that parking lot gets used not only for the dog owners, but there's a number of people who
Yep.
are using it as a place to park when they bicycle or run or walk up and down the 202 path. There are also people who are fishing in the pond behind there. And
Yes.
so it's
Yes,
getting a
there
lot more traffic than just dog owners.
I can
And-
attest to the fishing.
But the dog owners are particularly interested in seeing
Be
that
happy
appear.
about it.
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
My son loves to fish, and he likes that. He likes that pond, and he likes the one at Enclave too.
Maybe these people need to get township fishing.
Okay.
I know, just the revenue stream.
Item number 15, public outreach motorist speed reduction campaign. Carolyn McCreary.
So that's a really fancy way to ask about magnetic bumper stickers. But when we've had complaints about speeding, specifically Grays Lane, the board and the staff, we all discussed, what else can we do besides enforcement? They do directed patrols. And one of the things that the board suggested was how much education can we do? Are there different ways to educate? So Miss Staub was at an event and she got a bumper sticker and she asked if I could look at it and talk to Derek about developing something that would just encourage people to remember to drive the speed limit when they're going through our neighborhoods, really through the township in general. The cost to produce 125 of them is $440. And then for 250 of them, it's $560. And it's not so much the cost as the design I wanted to share with you. So it says basically Montgomery Township pace car, drive the speed limit. And it's got our MT logo, which is what we typically use on merchandise that we're doing for public information purposes versus like when you use the seal on, piece of letterhead or something. So he sort of put that together and gave you different variations of it. And I just wanted to get your consensus. One, if you still want me to go ahead and order them, and two, which one you like, and hopefully you'll come to an agreement and then we can put an order in if that's how you wish to proceed.
Well, thank you for putting this together, Carolyn. I love the "We Set the Pace." I think that's a really cool way to say it, because I think some people might lose the pace car.
Yeah, I did.
It's too many words.
Yeah, and I just think "We Set the Pace" just sounds like a nice little slogan that we could use not only here but others, but driving the speed limit. Yeah, I like that, and I like the blue.
I like the
I'm a blue person.
Well, it's always been your color in the past, that Montgomery Township
That's our
blue,
Montgomery
so,
Township
yeah,
blue,
with the
yeah.
white lettering,
That's our
so that
branding.
one, okay.
Yeah.
All right, so then what we'll do is we'll order them, and then once they're in, we'll make it known to the public that they can be picked up here at the township building, and or maybe we'll even take some over to the rec center because it gets a lot more foot traffic.
Yeah, I think just giving people more tools to try and spread the word about safe driving is great.
Well, I would think the red light cameras hitting them for
Yep.
$100 a
That-
pop might help
that
too.
too.
At the, I'm going to be really interested to see what happens when we put it out here, because the numbers that the highway safety unit officer shared at the traffic engineers meeting just continue to amaze me. Yep. Especially the repeat offenders, like you didn't learn the first time you went through the light that, you're getting it again. So it's $100 if you go through the red light, $300 if you go past a stop or a school bus that's got, stopped, regardless of what side of the road you're on, you have to stop.
It's a learning curve.
Thank you for that. Carolyn. Remember when you mentioned that?
Yeah.
Okay, I think we have talked about everything. So I'm going to make a motion to adjourn. Any public comments? All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you, everyone, for those who stayed with us. Thank you.
Still no score. Still no score. Okay. At halftime, there's no score. All right.
Go Birds.
Everybody
Drive
run
carefully
home.
home, everyone.